12 Stoic Principles. He was dying, and he was the happiest person in the room. His students had gathered around him. Some were weeping openly. Others sat in stunned silence, unable to reconcile what they were watching. A man facing the end of his life, with a calm so complete, so genuine, so utterly unperformed, that it unsettled everyone who witnessed it. His name was Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoic philosophy, and in his final hours he did not rage against what was coming. He did not bargain. He did not collapse into the fear that consumes most people when they stand at the edge of everything they know. He looked at his students with clear eyes and said something that has echoed through 2,000 years of human thinking. He said, "I have learned everything I needed to learn. I have done everything I needed to do. Why should I be afraid of what comes next?" Not performance, not bravery manufactured for the audience, genuine peace. The peace of a person who had spent his entire life building something inside himself that could not be taken apart by any external force, including death itself. His students left that room changed, not because of how he died, because of what his dying revealed about how he had lived. Because they understood, watching him go, that the philosophy he had taught them was not theory. It was not a system for impressing people at dinner parties or winning arguments in public squares. It was a way of building a human being from the inside, through principles so precisely targeted at what actually matters that a person who lived by them genuinely over years became someone that even death could not touch. Those principles survived him. They were refined and deepened by everyone who came after, by Epictetus, who practiced them in chains, by Marcus Aurelius, who practiced them on a throne, by Seneca, who practiced them in the terrifying proximity of absolute power gone wrong. They survived because they work, not in the way that comfortable ideas work, by making you feel better temporarily, in the way that true things work, by making you more real, more capable, more genuinely alive in the face of everything life will inevitably bring. Today, we go through all 12 of them, completely, without shortcuts. This is Stoic Ascension. Subscribe to this channel right now, because every video here is built to go this deep, into the philosophy, the practice, the application to real life that most content never touches. Turn on your notifications. You do not want to miss what comes after this. The first principle: distinguish what is yours from what is not. Everything in Stoic philosophy flows from this. Every other principle builds on it. Every practice returns to it. If you understand only one thing from everything we cover today, let it be this: there is a line running through every moment of your life. On one side of that line are the things genuinely up to you: your judgments, your intentions, your desires, your responses, the meaning you assign to what happens. On the other side are the things not up to you: your reputation, other people's actions, the outcomes of your efforts, the body's vulnerability to illness, the economy, the past, the future as it actually unfolds rather than as you imagine it. Epictetus called this the dichotomy of control, and he placed it at the absolute foundation of his teaching. He had personal authority on the subject. As a slave, he had experienced the complete removal of external control. Everything that could be taken had been taken. And what remained, what no master, no law, no act of force could reach, was the interior space of his own judgment and response. That space, he discovered, was the only space that ever truly belonged to him, and it was enough. The reason this principle is foundational is that almost all human suffering comes from its violation, from spending the majority of your energy on the side of the line you cannot control, from making your happiness, your peace, your sense of worth contingent on things that were never yours to command. You cannot control whether you are recognized. You can control the quality of your effort. You cannot control whether you are loved.
You can control how genuinely and openly you love. You cannot control the outcome of any endeavor. You can control the integrity of your approach to it. Begin practicing this distinction today, not as a philosophy exercise, as a daily audit. Every time you feel disturbed, anxious, frustrated, or depleted, ask immediately, am I spending energy on the controllable or the uncontrollable side of the line? The answer will almost always reveal the source of the disturbance, and the source, once seen clearly, becomes workable. The second principle, your judgment is the author of your experience. This principle follows directly from the first and deepens it considerably. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals, words meant for no one but himself, that everything we experience is filtered through our own interpretation, that nothing is inherently good or bad, that events are neutral. What makes them significant, painful, joyful, threatening, or liberating is the judgment the mind places on top of them. This is not wishful thinking. It is a precise observation about the structure of human experience. Two people receive the same criticism. One person collapses into shame and spends 3 days in painful rumination. The other person examines the criticism with curiosity, extracts whatever is useful from it, and returns to their work. The criticism was identical. The experience was entirely different. Not because of the event, because of the judgment each person applied to it. Two people face the same financial setback. One sees catastrophe, permanent evidence of inadequacy, a sign that the future is closed. The other sees difficulty, a problem requiring creative response, temporary discomfort that does not define the trajectory of the life. The circumstance was identical. The experience was entirely different. This principle is empowering in the deepest sense because it locates the source of your experience precisely where you have access to it, not in the world, which you cannot fully control, but in your own interpretation, which you can, through practice, through deliberate examination, through the disciplined refusal to accept the first and most automatic story as the only available truth. Every time you feel disturbed by something, practice asking the most honest question, is this a fact? Or is this my judgment about a fact? Is what I am suffering from the event itself, or the meaning I have decided to assign it? And if it is the meaning, and it almost always is, what other meanings are available that are equally honest but less destructive?
The third principle, live according to nature. This is one of the most misunderstood phrases in all of Stoic philosophy. When people first encounter it, they often imagine a call to simplicity, to live outdoors, to reject civilization, to return to some primitive state of natural existence. This is not what the Stoics meant at all. When they said live according to nature, they meant live in accordance with the deepest nature of what a human being actually is. And what a human being actually is, at their deepest nature, is a rational, social creature capable of wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. To live according to nature, in the Stoic sense, is to live in full expression of these capacities, to use reason deliberately, to engage honestly and generously with other people, to cultivate wisdom through experience and reflection, to act with courage when courage is required, to practice the discipline that keeps appetite and impulse from governing behavior. Living against nature, in this framework, means living below your actual capacity, letting fear govern where courage is called for, letting impulse govern where discipline is required, letting selfishness govern where justice matters, letting laziness govern where effort is needed. The call to live according to nature is the call to live at the full height of what you actually are, not what society tells you to be, not what is comfortable or convenient. What you genuinely are at your best when you are functioning as the kind of being you were built to be. This principle asks you daily, am I living at the full height of my nature today? Am I using my reason, engaging genuinely with others, practicing wisdom, acting with courage, maintaining discipline? Or am I living below what I am capable of and calling the smaller life comfortable instead of naming it accurately as diminishment? The fourth principle, virtue is the only true good. Of all the Stoic principles, this is the one that most radically departs from how most people currently organize their lives. And it is the one with the most capacity to genuinely transform the experience of being alive. The Stoics argued something that sounds extreme until you examine it carefully. That the only thing which is unconditionally good, good in all circumstances, good without qualification, good regardless of how it is used, is virtue, the quality of a person's character, their wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, relationships, achievement, pleasure, these are what the Stoics called preferred indifference. They are worth pursuing. Their presence makes life more pleasant. Their absence is genuinely difficult. But they are not unconditionally good because they can all be used badly, and they can all be lost. Health is good until someone uses their health in the service of violence. Wealth is pleasant until it produces arrogance, complacency, or the corruption of a person's character. Reputation matters until the pursuit of it leads someone to compromise everything that made them worth knowing in the first place. Virtue cannot be used badly. Genuine wisdom applied to any situation makes the situation better. Genuine justice practiced in any relationship makes the relationship more real. Genuine courage, expressed in any moment that calls for it, honors both the moment and the person who rises to it. And virtue cannot be lost against your will.
Everything else can be taken. Health can be taken by illness. Wealth can be taken by circumstance. Reputation can be damaged by people who lie or by systems that are unjust. But your character, what you have genuinely built through years of practice and deliberate choice, remains yours until you yourself give it away through your own choices. This principle asks you to re-examine the entire framework through which you are pursuing your life. What are you ultimately working toward? What would constitute success in the deepest and most honest sense? And if the answer is primarily external, primarily about what you will have or achieve or be seen as, then this principle is inviting you into a more durable and more honest relationship with what actually makes a life genuinely good. The fifth principle, accept what you cannot change, then work with what is real. There is a discipline the Stoics practice called amor fati, love of fate. Not merely acceptance of what cannot be changed, genuine embrace of it. The recognition that what has happened, exactly as it happened, is the material you have to work with, and working well with what you have is the only meaningful response available. Marcus Aurelius expressed this with characteristic precision. He wrote about meeting obstacles not with resistance or resentment, but with the question, what does this make possible? Not what has this prevented? What has this created? What path has this difficulty opened that the easier path would never have required me to find? This is radically different from passive resignation. It is the most active possible relationship with reality. It says, I will not waste energy fighting what has already occurred. I will invest all of that energy in responding to what is actually here. The person who cannot accept what they cannot change spends their life at war with the past. They argue with what happened. They rehearse the injustice. They maintain the anger or grief or disappointment as if holding it long enough will change the outcome. And while they are at war with what was, they are absent from what is. The present, the only place where anything can actually be done, passes without them in it. The Stoic practice is to feel what needs to be felt about what occurred fully, honestly, without suppression, and then to turn completely toward what is actually present, not what should be here, what is here, and ask, given this reality exactly as it is, what is the best thing I can do right now? This question, asked and answered honestly and consistently, is one of the most powerful engines of genuine forward movement available to any human being. It cannot be engaged while you are still arguing with the past. It requires that you be completely, unflinchingly here.
The sixth principle, memento mori. Remember that you will die. Remember that you will die not as a morbid practice, not as a counsel of despair or a reason for nihilism. as the most clarifying truth available to a human being who wants to live with genuine purpose and genuine presence. The Stoics returned to this principle constantly. Marcus Aurelius wrote about it more than almost any other single topic in his journals. He reminded himself daily that the emperors before him, men of extraordinary power and historical significance, were gone, that the people who had praised them and the people who had cursed them were equally gone, that the controversies that had felt enormous in their moment had dissolved completely into the silence of time. And then he turned to his own day, to his own decisions, to the work in front of him, not with despair at the impermanence, but with the freedom that impermanence creates when it is genuinely understood. When you remember that you will die, really remember it, not as an intellectual fact, but as a felt reality. Trivial things lose their power to disturb you. The petty conflict, the minor slight, the small embarrassment, the social anxiety about what people think, these things cannot survive genuine contact with the awareness of your own mortality. They become, in that awareness, exactly what they are: small. And the things that genuinely matter, the relationships, the work, the character you are building, the moments of genuine presence and honest engagement with the people you love, these things become larger, more vivid, more worth protecting. Memento mori is not about death. It is about life, about what becomes visible when the lens of mortality is applied honestly to the question of how you are spending your days. Practice it. Not once, daily. Ask each morning, given that this day is not guaranteed to be followed by another, how do I want to spend it? What matters enough to give it my genuine attention and care? And what am I currently giving attention to that does not survive this question? The seventh principle, negative visualization. Hold what you love with open hands. Closely related to memento mori, but distinct from it, negative visualization is the deliberate, regular practice of imagining the loss of what you currently have, not to create anxiety, but to generate genuine gratitude and to inoculate yourself against the devastation of loss when it arrives. The Stoics observed that most human misery about loss comes not from the loss itself, but from the gap between expectation and reality. We expect things to stay. We assume the people we love will be there tomorrow, the health we currently enjoy will continue, the circumstances that make our lives livable are permanent features rather than temporary gifts. And then something is taken, and the shock of its absence is amplified enormously by the assumption of its permanence. Negative visualization closes that gap deliberately. It is the practice of sitting quietly and imagining, with genuine vividness, what your life would be like without the things you currently move through without truly seeing, without the person who is simply there, without the body that functions well enough to carry you through your days, without the home that shelters you, without the work that gives your time direction, without the small pleasures that make the ordinary livable. Feel the reality of their absence, not morbidly, with the honest recognition that all of it is temporary, that all of it is gift rather than entitlement. And then open your eyes and look at what is actually here. What happens in people who practice this consistently is not depression or dread. It is an overwhelming and genuine gratitude for the ordinary, for the person across the table, for the morning light, for the ability to do the work, for the conversation that happens because two people chose to be present to each other. Gratitude generated this way is not manufactured positivity. It is the accurate recognition of what is actually here, seen clearly because you have honestly contemplated its absence. And a mind filled with genuine gratitude has very little room for the trivial disturbances that consume so much of the untrained mind's daily attention. The eighth principle: you are a part of something larger than yourself. The Stoics were not individualists in the modern sense. They believed deeply and practically in the connectedness of all human beings, in what they called the brotherhood of humanity, the idea that every person you encounter is, in the most fundamental sense, your kin. Marcus Aurelius returned to this principle regularly in his journals. He wrote about the temptation to withdraw from difficult people, to pull back from the friction of genuine engagement with others who frustrate and disappoint and fail to understand. And he counseled against it,
Not because people are not frustrating, but because withdrawal from the human community was, in his view, a withdrawal from your own deepest nature. Remember the third principle. You are a rational, social creature. The social part is not optional. It is not a preference some people have and others lack. It is part of what you are. And a person who cuts themselves off from genuine engagement with others out of disappointment or pride or the comfortable self-sufficiency that isolation can feel like is living below their nature. This principle has practical implications that go beyond philosophy. It means that the person who cuts you off in traffic is a human being with their own interior life, their own difficulties, their own history of wounds and fears and partially realized hopes. Not an obstacle, a person. It means that the colleague who frustrates you is trying, in their imperfect way, to navigate the same fundamental human challenges you are navigating. Not an enemy, a fellow traveler. It means that your well-being and the well-being of the people around you are not in competition. That genuine contribution to others is not a sacrifice of yourself, but an expression of your deepest nature. That the person who lives only for themselves is living against what they actually are. Practice this daily by extending the most generous interpretation available to the behavior of the people around you. Not naively, not in ways that put you in harm's way, but with the basic recognition that everyone is carrying something you cannot see, and that the most intelligent first response to human difficulty is usually understanding rather than judgment. The ninth principle. The obstacle is the way. This principle has become one of the most widely recognized ideas from Stoic philosophy, and it deserves to be explored in its full depth rather than as a motivational slogan. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not saying that obstacles are secretly blessings in disguise, in the shallow sense that phrase is sometimes used. He was making a precise, philosophical, and practical claim about the relationship between difficulty and growth. Every obstacle you encounter does two things simultaneously. It blocks the original path, and it reveals something about your incapacity, about alternate routes, about what you are actually capable of when the easy path is no longer available. The person who loses a job is blocked from the original plan. They are simultaneously confronted with questions about what they actually want, what they are genuinely capable of, what they have been avoiding by staying comfortable in something familiar. The obstacle reveals what the ease concealed. The relationship that ends is a door closing. It is simultaneously and inevitably a space opening for honest self-examination about patterns and choices, for the growth that the relationship may have made unnecessary or impossible, for a kind of solitude that, however painful initially, produces something that companionship sometimes prevents. The illness, the financial setback, the failure, the loss, each one blocks something. Each one simultaneously creates something. Not automatically, not easily, but the creation is genuinely available inside the destruction for the person who is willing to look for it. Practicing this principle means developing the habit of asking, in the presence of every obstacle, what is this creating? Not immediately, not before the difficulty is fully felt, but eventually, with honesty and genuine curiosity, what has this opened that the easier path would have left closed? The answer will not always be dramatic. Sometimes what the obstacle creates is simply the evidence that you can handle more than you thought, that survival is possible, that the thing you feared losing was not, in fact, the thing your life depended on. That evidence, accumulated over a lifetime of genuine engagement with difficulty, builds something that cannot be built any other way. A relationship with yourself as someone who does not need circumstances to be easy in order to keep moving forward. The 10th principle, practice voluntary discomfort. This principle is the one that most clearly separates Stoicism from the large category of philosophies that are pleasant to read about and comfortable to discuss and extremely difficult to actually practice. The Stoics recommended deliberately choosing discomfort, not as punishment, not as asceticism for its own sake, but as a specific and precise training method for the kind of person they were trying to become. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, a person who had access to every luxury available in the ancient world, would regularly spend several days eating only the cheapest food, wearing the roughest clothing, sleeping on the hardest surface available. Not because he was required to, because he needed to know that he could. He needed to test whether his comfort had become his master.
Whether the loss of luxury would produce the panic of someone who had become dependent on it, or the calm of someone who knew they could function well regardless of circumstances. He found the answer in practice rather than theory. He discovered that the feared discomfort was far less terrible than the fear of it, that the body and mind, deprived of their usual comforts, adapted and continued, that the self that remained in scarcity was recognizably himself, capable and intact, unbothered by the absence of what he had temporarily given up. This is the purpose of voluntary discomfort, not to prove anything to anyone else, to provide yourself with the evidence that cannot be generated any other way, that you are larger than your comforts, that you can function well in conditions you would not choose, that the things you currently depend on for your daily ease are not, in fact, the things you actually need in order to be yourself. The practical applications of this principle are available at every level of commitment. The cold shower that you take, not because it is pleasant, but because the discipline of doing the uncomfortable thing builds the relationship with discomfort that your larger life will eventually require. The difficult conversation you have now, rather than avoiding until it becomes unavoidable. The physical difficulty you choose because ease, pursued exclusively, produces a self that can only function in ease. Small voluntary discomforts, practiced consistently, build the capacity for large involuntary ones. The training is the point, and the training works. The 11th principle: be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Seneca wrote something that should stop every person who reads it. He wrote that we are all actors in a play of our own construction, playing roles we designed to gain the approval of an audience that is barely watching. That most people spend their lives performing a character rather than inhabiting one. That the distance between the performance and the reality is the precise distance from which genuine happiness is kept. Ruthless honesty with yourself is the practice of collapsing that distance. Not all at once, not in a single dramatic act of self-revelation, but daily in the private space of genuine self-examination, asking the questions that the performance is specifically designed to avoid. Am I actually living according to the values I claim to hold? Or am I claiming the values and living according to convenience, comfort, and the path of least social resistance? Am I pursuing what I actually want? What, in my most honest interior moments, I know to be the life I want to be living? Or am I pursuing what I think I should want? What has been prescribed by family or culture or the expectations of people whose approval I have been mistakenly treating as the measure of my success? Am I honest in my relationships? Genuinely present? Genuinely truthful? Genuinely engaged? Or am I managing impressions, performing connection, maintaining the image of someone who relates well, while the actual relating remains safely at the surface? These questions are uncomfortable. They are designed to be. The Stoics were not gentle with themselves in their private examinations, and they did not recommend that their students be gentle either. Gentleness in self-examination produces comfortable illusions. Rigor produces genuine self-knowledge, and genuine self-knowledge, uncomfortable as it is to acquire, is the only foundation for genuine change. You cannot change what you refuse to see clearly, and seeing yourself clearly
without the distortions of pride and self-protection and the desire to believe you are already more aligned with your values than you are, this is both the most difficult and the most liberating thing a person can do. Practice it regularly, not as self-punishment, as the commitment to knowing yourself accurately enough to actually become who you want to be. The 12th principle. Begin again, every single day. This is the principle that makes all the others sustainable, the one that catches you when you fall from the others and returns you to them without the kind of self-recrimination that makes return impossible. You will have days when none of this works, days when the distinction between controllable and uncontrollable dissolves in the heat of genuine fury, when the judgment you apply to events is the most destructive one available, when you abandon living according to your nature in favor of living according to your worst impulses, when virtue seems abstract and unachievable and the preferred indifferent in front of you seems overwhelmingly important, when you cannot accept what cannot be changed and waste hours arguing with reality, when you forget your mortality and spend the day as if time were infinite and nothing were urgent, when you fail to feel grateful for what you have and instead catalog everything missing, when you withdraw from the people around you and choose comfort over genuine engagement, when the obstacle defeats you instead of revealing something, when you choose ease when difficulty would have built you, when you lie to yourself about something important because the truth is too demanding, when you fall away from every principle on this list and end the day as the person you are trying not to be. Those days will come. For everyone who practices this philosophy, for everyone who has ever practiced it, including Marcus Aurelius, who returned to the same principles in his journals again and again, not because he had forgotten them, but because he had failed them and needed to find his way back. The Stoic response to those days is neither self-destruction nor casual dismissal. It is honest acknowledgement. What happened? Where did I fall from what I know to be true? What does that falling reveal about where the practice needs to go deeper? And then, the most important act available to any human being who is genuinely trying to grow. Begin again tomorrow. Not with the weight of every previous failure. Not with the accumulated shame of every day you did not live at the level you wanted to. With the fresh, simple, undramatic commitment to try again, to practice again, to apply again the principles that you understand well enough to have noticed when you departed from them.
The Stoics believed, and the evidence of practice across thousands of years confirms, that genuine wisdom is not a state you arrive at and maintain perfectly. It is a direction you walk in, with consistency, with commitment, with the regular renewal of your intention to keep walking, even on the days when walking is hard. Begin again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. This is the practice. This is the path. This is the whole of what Zeno understood at the end of his life when he said he had learned everything he needed to learn and had no reason to be afraid. He had spent his entire life beginning again, and in the beginning again, he had built something that even death, arriving at last, could not touch. What these principles build together. Taken individually, each of these principles is powerful. Applied in isolation, any single one of them can produce meaningful change in how a person experiences their life. But what happens when all 12 are practiced together, consistently, imperfectly, over years, is something qualitatively different from the sum of the individual parts. They build a person. Not the person you were shaped into by the accumulated accidents of your history, by the family you were born into, the wounds you sustained, the habits you formed without choosing them, the identity you assembled from what was available and what seemed expected. A person you have constructed, deliberately, through the slow accumulation of principled choices made daily, in private, without an audience, because the standard belongs to you rather than to anyone watching. A person who knows the difference between what is theirs and what is not, who takes responsibility for their own experience without claiming responsibility for what was never theirs to control. A person whose inner life is real, genuinely felt, honestly examined, deliberately shaped, rather than a performance maintained for external consumption.
A person who can stand in difficulty without being destroyed by it, who can feel everything fully without being commanded by anything, who can lose what is most precious without losing the self that is capable of loving again. A person who moves through the world with the quiet authority of someone who has done the work, not the performed confidence of someone trying to appear certain. The genuine groundedness of someone who has examined what they believe, tested it against their actual experience, and found it trustworthy. This is what Stoic philosophy builds. This is what the 12 principles practiced together over a life accumulate into. Not perfection, not immunity from suffering, not a life without loss or failure or the full weight of human difficulty. A life that is genuinely, durably, honestly yours. Lived at the full height of what you actually are. Directed by the values you actually hold. Building, day by day and choice by choice, the person that Zeno recognized himself to be in his final hours. Someone who had learned what needed to be learned and done what needed to be done, and who could therefore face whatever came next with clear eyes and genuine peace. That person is what this philosophy is for. And that person begins to be built the moment you stop reading or listening about these principles and begin practicing them. These 12 principles have been available for over 2,000 years. They have been practiced by slaves and emperors, by the imprisoned and the free, by people in circumstances of extraordinary difficulty and people in circumstances of extraordinary privilege. And in every case, by every person who applied them genuinely and consistently, they have produced the same result. A life that feels more real, more directed, more genuinely the person's own. That result is available to you, not as a destination you arrive at when you have read enough or understood enough or achieved enough, as a direction you begin moving in today, with the first principle applied to the very next disturbance you feel, with the practice of beginning again applied to every day you fall short of the others. This is the work. It is the most important work any human being can do, and it never ends, which is not a discouragement but the deepest possible invitation, because it means there is always more to practice, always more to understand, always more to become. Subscribe to Stoic Ascension. Turn on your notifications. Every video on this channel is built to go exactly this deep into the philosophy and practice that builds real people living real lives with genuine intention and genuine depth. What comes after this builds directly on everything you just heard. The path is here. The principles are yours. Begin. Stoic Ascension. There is a question that people ask constantly about this topic, and it deserves a completely honest answer. The question is, do I need to feel confident before I can improve my appearance, or will improving my appearance make me feel confident? The honest answer is both, and neither one comes first. They build each other. Welcome to Stoic Ascension. Focus on your appearance. She walked into the room, and nothing was said. Nothing needed to be. Every head turned, not because she was the most conventionally beautiful person there, not because she was wearing the most expensive clothes or carrying the most recognizable name. Something else was happening, something that every person in that room felt before they could articulate it. She looked like someone who had decided. Her posture said it. The way she moved said it. The way her clothes fit, not extravagantly, but deliberately, said it. The way she met eyes without apology said it. The way she occupied her own body, without shrinking, without performing, without the restless self-consciousness that most people carry like invisible weight. All of it said the same thing, loudly, without a single word. This person has taken themselves seriously. Her name was not important. What was important was what she had understood that most people around her had not. Your appearance is not vanity. Your appearance is communication. It is the first language you speak in every room you enter, to every person you meet, before your mouth opens, before your credentials are mentioned, before anyone knows your name or your story or what you are capable of. And most people are communicating something they never consciously chose. They are communicating neglect, indifference, a quiet signal to the world that says, I have not decided yet, that I am still waiting for something, some circumstance, some relationship, some arrival of confidence, before I begin to take the outside of myself as seriously as the inside deserves. The Stoics had something precise and powerful to say about this, and it was not what you might expect. This is Stoic Ascension. Subscribe to this channel right now because what we build here is a complete philosophy for living, one that takes every dimension of your life seriously, including the ones that get dismissed as superficial. Every video goes deeper. You do not want to miss what is coming.
What the Stoics actually believed about appearance. There is a widespread misunderstanding about Stoic philosophy and physical appearance. Many people assume the Stoics dismissed the body and its presentation as irrelevant, that they were exclusively concerned with the interior life and considered any attention to the exterior a form of vanity, incompatible with wisdom. This is not what they believed, and getting this wrong costs people something real. The Stoics made a precise distinction. They distinguished between appearance as a source of identity and appearance as an expression of character. Appearance as a source of identity is the belief that how you look determines your worth, that your value as a human being rises and falls with your physical attributes, your fashion choices, your social presentation. This is the belief that drives vanity, insecurity, the desperate performance of status, the exhausting maintenance of an image designed to generate approval. The Stoics rejected this completely. They were unambiguous. Your worth is not located in your face, your body, your wardrobe, or anyone's assessment of any of these things. Your worth is located in your character, in the quality of your judgments, your intentions, your actions, and your commitments. But appearance, as an expression of character, this is something entirely different. And the Stoics not only accepted it, they actively practiced it. They understood that how you present yourself to the world is a choice, and choices express character. The choice to be clean, ordered, deliberate in your presentation, this is not vanity. This is respect. Respect for yourself. Respect for the people you encounter, respect for the life you are trying to build and the person you are trying to become. Epictetus, despite having nothing, a former slave with no possessions worth speaking of, was known for the cleanliness and orderliness of his presentation. He taught his students that a philosopher who neglected the care of their own body and presentation was communicating something about their relationship to discipline. And a person without discipline in the small, visible things, he argued, was unlikely to have it in the large, invisible ones. This is the Stoic position on appearance. Not obsession, not vanity. Deliberate, principled, values-aligned care for the way you present yourself to the world. The story of the sculptor who changed everything. In ancient Athens, there lived a sculptor named Phidias, who had been commissioned to create a statue of the goddess Athena for the interior of the Parthenon. The statue was to be placed against the back wall, elevated on a pedestal, facing the entrance. He worked for years on the piece. He sculpted every surface with extraordinary care, the front, the sides, the details of the face and hands and robes with a precision that bordered on obsession. One of his assistants noticed, while working on the back of the statue, that Phidias was spending just as much time on the rear surface, the part that would face the wall, the part that no visitor to the Parthenon would ever see. The assistant asked why. Why spend that effort on what would be invisible? Phidias looked at him with the patience of someone who understood something the questioner had not yet grasped. He said, "The gods will see it." This story has passed through philosophy and art and architecture for centuries because it captures something essential about the relationship between excellence and observation. True excellence is not performed for an audience. It does not require witnesses. It is practiced in private with the same care as in public because the standard does not belong to the audience. It belongs to the person doing the work. Your appearance, tended with this spirit, is not about impressing the room. It is about being the kind of person who takes care of themselves whether anyone is watching or not. It is about the private discipline that produces the visible result, and about understanding that the discipline is the real achievement, and the visible result is simply its honest expression. What your appearance is already communicating. Right now, before you change a single thing, your appearance is communicating. It has been communicating every day of your life, to every person you have encountered, in every room you have entered. The question is not whether it is speaking. The question is what it is saying. And most people have never asked this question clearly. They have drifted into their appearance the way people drift into habits, through inertia, through convenience, through the accumulated choices of a person who was not fully paying attention.
And that drift has been communicating something to the world that they never consciously chose to say. Think about what you wore the last time something important happened. The last interview, the last first meeting, the last event where the impression you made mattered. Did you choose it deliberately? Did you think about what it communicated? Not just whether it was acceptable, but what it said about you, about how seriously you take yourself, about the level at which you are operating. Most people dress to avoid criticism rather than to make a statement. They aim for acceptable rather than deliberate. And the result is an appearance that says nothing in particular, which, in the language of first impressions, says something very specific. This person has not decided yet. The world responds to decision, to evidence that someone has taken stock of themselves and made choices about what they want to put forward. Not expensive choices necessarily, not fashionable choices necessarily, deliberate ones. A clean, well-fitted garment from an inexpensive store communicates more decisiveness than a designer piece worn carelessly. A simple haircut maintained with consistency communicates more intention than an elaborate style that has been neglected. The care is what speaks, not the cost. What is your appearance currently communicating? Not what you intended to communicate, what it is actually saying to the rooms you walk into before you open your mouth. This question is not designed to create shame. It is designed to create honesty, because honest assessment is always the beginning of genuine change. The relationship between the inner and the outer. The Stoics understood something about the relationship between inner state and outer presentation that modern psychology has confirmed from a different direction. The relationship is not one way, it is reciprocal. Most people think of it as flowing only from inside to outside. You feel confident, so you stand tall. You feel purposeful, so you dress with care. You feel worthy, so you take yourself seriously. The inner state produces the outer expression. This is true, but it is only half the truth. The outer also produces the inner. The way you carry your body changes the way you feel in it. The effort you put into your presentation changes the way you relate to yourself. The discipline of caring for your appearance consistently, regardless of mood, creates the feeling of someone who takes themselves seriously. And that feeling, created by the outer behavior, then becomes the inner reality. This is not manipulation of the self. It is collaboration between the body and the mind, a collaboration the Stoics intuited and practiced deliberately. Marcus Aurelius, preparing to address the Senate, to meet foreign dignitaries, to make decisions that would affect millions of people, did not dress carelessly. He dressed as someone who understood the weight of what he was doing and respected it enough to show up prepared in every visible way. Not because the toga made him wiser, but because the deliberateness of the preparation was itself an act of taking the work seriously. And that act of taking the work seriously produced the inner state that the work required. Your morning routine, the care you take or do not take with your body and your presentation before you go out into the world, is sending a message to your own nervous system about what kind of day this is and what kind of person is facing it. Show up carelessly and the nervous system receives a signal. This is not important enough to take seriously. Show up deliberately, with care, intention, and the visible evidence of someone who has prepared, and the nervous system receives a different signal entirely. This matters. Not as a trick, as a genuine understanding of how the human being is built, and how to work with that construction rather than against it. Posture, the most underestimated element. If there is a single dimension of appearance that carries more communicative weight than any other, and that most people have the most control over right now without spending a single cent, it is posture. The way you hold your body is the loudest nonverbal statement you make. It speaks before anything else. It is read faster than clothing, faster than grooming, faster than facial expression. It is the first signal the human perceptual system registers when another person enters the environment. And most people's posture is communicating something that does not serve them. Shoulders curved forward, head angled down, chest collapsed, the whole body arranged in a posture of apology,
as if it is sorry for taking up space, sorry for being visible, sorry for existing in a world that might judge it. This is not always a reflection of how the person feels. Sometimes it is simply a habit, accumulated over years of desk work, of screen time, of carrying bags on one shoulder, of the 1,000 small postural collapses that modern life makes easy. But the habit communicates regardless of its origin. The Stoics were explicit about the connection between physical bearing and psychological state. Epictetus connected the way a person held their body to the way they held their philosophy. A person who had genuinely internalized the dignity of their own nature, he argued, would not be found collapsed and apologetic in their physical presentation. This does not mean stiff or militaristic or performed. It means upright. It means the body of someone who has decided they have a right to be here, the body of someone who is not asking permission to exist in the room. Begin here, before anything else, before the wardrobe review, before the grooming changes, before any other dimension of this work. Begin with the physical decision to take up your full and rightful space. Stand as if you have already decided, because the standing, done consistently, will produce the decision you were waiting to feel before you were willing to stand.
Grooming as daily discipline. There is a daily practice that costs almost nothing in money and very little in time that communicates enormous amounts about a person's relationship to self-respect, and that most people treat as optional rather than essential. Grooming. The basic, consistent, daily care of your physical self. Clean skin, clean hair, clean teeth, trimmed nails. The absence of the small details of neglect that individually seem insignificant, but that accumulate into an overall impression of someone who does not take their own maintenance seriously. The Stoics would call this the practice of basic order, not luxury, not vanity. Order, the maintenance of the physical instrument through which you engage with the world. Seneca wrote about the relationship between external disorder and internal disorder, not as a causal claim, messy hair does not make you a messy thinker, but as a pattern. The person who tends to neglect the visible, manageable aspects of their physical maintenance often has the same relationship with the invisible, manageable aspects of their internal life. The neglect is not located in the hair or the skin. It is a pattern of relationship with maintenance itself. And conversely, the discipline of consistent daily grooming, modest as it seems, is a form of practice in the larger discipline of taking care of what is yours to take care of. It is a small daily act of saying, I am worth the effort. My presentation to the world matters. The instrument I am working with deserves to be maintained. This is not about perfection. A person with a skin condition, a person going through illness, a person in circumstances that make elaborate grooming impossible. None of this is a failure of character. The Stoics were not cruel in their standards. The practice is about intention, about the consistent, deliberate choice to take care of the visible self with the same seriousness you bring to the invisible one, because they are not as separate as we like to pretend. Clothing, not fashion, but intention. Let us be precise about what the Stoic approach to clothing is, because it is frequently misunderstood in both directions. It is not the belief that you should own expensive things. Seneca lived through periods of enormous wealth and periods of enforced simplicity, and he was equally clear in both conditions that the value of clothing had nothing to do with its cost. He observed with characteristic sharpness that many of the most anxiously overdressed people in Rome were the most internally disordered, and that the relationship between expensive presentation and genuine self-possession was often inverse rather than direct. It is also not the belief that clothing does not matter.
The opposite mistake, the dismissal of all attention to presentation as superficiality beneath the concern of the philosophically serious person, this is equally wrong and in many ways more dangerous because it disguises negligence as virtue. The Stoic approach is deliberate simplicity, chosen intention, a wardrobe that reflects who you are and what you are about, that fits your body well, that is clean and maintained, and that requires no apology or explanation. This can be achieved at almost any budget. Fit matters more than brand. Cleanliness matters more than newness. Intention matters more than expense.
A simple, well-fitted garment that you have deliberately chosen because it reflects how you want to present yourself communicates more genuine self-possession than any amount of designer clothing worn by someone who has not thought about why they are wearing it. The questions to ask about your wardrobe are not, is this fashionable? Is this expensive enough? Will people be impressed by this? The questions are, does this fit? Does this reflect who I am trying to become? Is this clean and maintained? Does this represent a deliberate choice or a default? And the most important question of all, when I put this on, do I feel like the person I am working to be, or do I feel like someone who has not yet decided? Fitness and the body you inhabit. This is where many conversations about appearance become either evangelical or avoidant, and the Stoics offer a path that is neither. The Stoic position on physical fitness is grounded not in aesthetics, but in function. The body is the instrument through which you engage with your life. Like all instruments, it benefits from maintenance, from use, from the kind of deliberate care that keeps it capable of doing what you need it to do. Marcus Aurelius maintained physical discipline throughout his life not because he was trying to look impressive. He was preparing to lead campaigns, to make decisions under pressure, to maintain the mental clarity that his responsibilities demanded. And he understood from direct experience that the physical and mental were not separate systems. The quality of one affected the quality of the other in ways that were undeniable. Epictetus was physically disabled. His leg had been broken and never healed properly. He could not run or fight or do the physical practices that other philosophers recommended. And yet, he taught consistently that the care of the body, within whatever capacity was available, was a philosophical practice, not a vanity. What this means practically is that the Stoic call to attend to physical fitness is not a call to achieve a particular body shape or to measure up to any external standard of physical appearance. It is a call to take the body seriously as an instrument, to maintain it with the consistency and care that a person of discipline brings to anything that matters to them. Movement, sleep, basic nutrition. The refusal to treat the body as something to be used until it breaks, rather than maintained so it can serve you well. Not because you will look better, though you may. Not because others will respond to you differently, though they might. But because the discipline of caring for your physical instrument is an expression of the same values that drive everything else in this philosophy. You take care of what is yours. Your body is yours. The most physically intimate possession you will ever have, the home you never leave. Take care of your home.
The confidence that appearance builds, and the confidence that builds appearance. There is a question that people ask constantly about this topic, and it deserves a completely honest answer. The question is, do I need to feel confident before I can improve my appearance, or will improving my appearance make me feel confident? The honest answer is both, and neither one comes first. They build each other. This is not a circular trap. It is an entry point. You can enter the circle anywhere. You do not need to feel confident before you stand up straight. The standing straight will begin to create the feeling. You do not need to feel worthy before you dress with intention. The intention will begin to create the feeling of worthiness. You do not need to have arrived before you show up as someone who has.
The Stoics understood that character is built through action, not through waiting to feel like acting. You become courageous by doing courageous things before you feel courageous. You become disciplined by doing disciplined things before you feel disciplined. You become someone who takes themselves seriously by taking yourself seriously before the feeling catches up. Appearance is no different. The feeling of genuine self-possession that you want to inhabit, the easy, unself-conscious confidence of someone who has decided, is not waiting for you on the other side of some internal transformation that must happen first. It is built, in part, by beginning to act like that person now, by dressing like that person now, by standing like that person now, by maintaining yourself like that person now. The action precedes the feeling. The feeling, once established by the action, reinforces more action. And the cycle, entered anywhere, tends to move in one direction, toward the person you are genuinely trying to become. The social reality of appearance. We have to speak honestly about something that philosophical discussions of appearance sometimes soften in a way that does not serve people. The world responds to appearance. Not because it is right that it does, not because depth should be judged by surface, but because it does. And pretending otherwise leaves people unprepared for a reality that affects their opportunities, their relationships, and their daily experience in concrete ways. People form first impressions in seconds. Those impressions influence how they listen to you, how much authority they grant you, how seriously they take your ideas, how generous they are with their time and attention. This is not a moral statement about how the world should be. It is an accurate description of how it is. The Stoics were realists. They distinguished between what is ideal and what is real, and they always worked with what was real. Marcus Aurelius did not govern an ideal empire. He governed the actual one with all its complexity, unfairness, and human limitation. He worked within reality to produce the best outcomes available within it. Working with the reality of first impressions, understanding that your appearance precedes your ideas into every room you enter, is not selling out to superficiality. It is the practical wisdom of someone who wants their ideas to be heard, their presence to be felt, their contribution to be received.
You are removing unnecessary obstacles between who you actually are and how you are initially perceived. This serves you, and everything that serves you allows you to serve the people and purposes you care about more effectively. That is not vanity. That is intelligent engagement with the world as it actually is. The discipline of daily standards. What separates the person whose appearance reflects genuine self-possession from the person who occasionally cleans up well is not talent or resources or natural advantage. It is daily standards. The commitment to a minimal level of self-presentation that does not depend on mood, on whether anyone important is going to see you, on whether you feel like making the effort. A floor below which you simply do not go. Not because of rules imposed from outside, but because of the standard you have set for yourself as an expression of the respect you have chosen to hold yourself in. This daily standard is where the Stoic practice of appearance actually lives. Not in the big occasions where everyone makes the effort, in the ordinary Tuesday morning. In the day when you are tired and nothing important is scheduled and no one particularly significant is going to see you, the person who maintains their standard on that Tuesday is building something different from the person who only makes the effort when the stakes are visible. They are building the habit of self-respect that does not require external justification. They are practicing the discipline that becomes character. They are becoming, through daily repetition of a chosen standard, someone whose appearance is not a performance they put on, but a natural expression of who they actually are. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote about doing the right thing in private with the same care as in public. The gods will see it, Your own developing character will see it, and over time the habit will see it clearly enough that it stops feeling like effort and begins feeling like simply who you are.
What this is really about, everything we have covered today, posture, grooming, clothing, fitness, daily standards, the social reality of first impressions, all of it points towards something that has nothing to do with surfaces. It points toward the decision to take your own life seriously. That decision, once made genuinely, not as a performance, but as a real internal shift in how you relate to yourself, expresses itself naturally in how you present to the world, not because you are trying to look a certain way, but because a person who has truly decided that their life matters, that they matter, that what they are building and becoming deserves to be taken seriously, that person cannot help but show up differently. The appearance is the effect, the cause is the decision, and the work we are doing here, on this channel, in every video, through every layer of Stoic philosophy applied to the real dimensions of a real life, is the work of making that decision fully, honestly, and permanently. Not deciding that you are already enough and nothing needs to change. That is not what this philosophy teaches. Deciding that you are worth the effort of becoming more. That the distance between who you are today and who you are capable of being is not a source of shame, but a source of direction. That the gap is not evidence of failure, but an invitation to work. Your appearance is one dimension of that work. Not the most important one, not the one that will be remembered longest or matter most in the final accounting, but a real one, a daily one that, tended with intention and discipline, becomes part of the evidence you accumulate over a life that you took yourself seriously. Take up your space, stand up straight, put on something deliberate. Look in the mirror not to judge but to assess, to ask honestly whether what you see reflects the person you are working to become. And if the answer is not yet, let that be information, not a verdict. Let it be the beginning of a standard you are choosing now. A standard that you will maintain not because the world demands it, but because you have decided that you do. The invitation forward. The woman who walked into that room at the beginning of this did not look the way she looked because she was born with advantages or because she had resources others lacked. She looked that way because she had made a decision. She had chosen, at some point before anyone was watching, to take herself seriously, to maintain herself with care, to show up deliberately, to occupy her own body without apology. And that decision, practiced daily, had accumulated into something the room could feel before she spoke a single word. That decision is available to you today, not when you have lost the weight or earned the money or achieved the thing that feels like permission. Today, in the next choice you make about how you present yourself to the world. Make it deliberately. Make it as an expression of the person you are committed to becoming. Make it not for the room, but for the standard you are setting for yourself. And then maintain it, not perfectly, consistently, returning to it every morning as a practice, the way you return to every other practice that matters. This is the work. It is simple, it is unglamorous, it is daily. And it is one of the most honest expressions of self-respect available to any human being. Begin today. Subscribe to Stoic Ascension right now. Every video on this channel is built for exactly this kind of work. The complete, serious, philosophy-grounded examination of what it takes to build a life and a self that you are genuinely proud of. Turn on your notifications because every video that comes next builds on everything you heard today. The version of you that walks into every room with presence, intention, and the quiet authority of someone who has decided, that version is not waiting for perfect circumstances. It is waiting for your decision. Make it. Stoic Ascension.
Master your anger like a Stoic. He had the power to execute anyone in the room, and he stood there, shaking, silent, choosing not to. This was not weakness. This was the most difficult thing a powerful person can do. This was a man at the absolute peak of human authority, commanding armies, governing nations, holding the literal power of life and death over millions, standing in the middle of his own fury and refusing to let it speak. His name was Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and the moment that tested him was not a battlefield. It was a dinner. A public dinner where a senator, drunk on wine and his own arrogance, stood and began mocking him, not quietly, loudly, in front of everyone, laughing at his philosophy, his restraint, his refusal to be the brutal emperor that Rome had known before him. Every person in that room expected Marcus to respond with force. He had every right to, every legal authority, every social justification. The senator had crossed a line that no one in Rome would have blamed him for destroying a man over. Marcus Aurelius looked at the senator for a long moment. Then he turned back to his food. He said nothing. He did not punish the man that night, or the next morning, or ever. Later, in the privacy of his journals, words written for no one but himself, he wrote about that kind of moment. He wrote about anger as a form of temporary madness, about how the person who gives in to rage believes they are expressing strength, when in truth they are demonstrating that something outside them has taken complete control of something inside them. He wrote that the measure of a person is not what provokes them. It is what they do inside the provocation. That dinner happened nearly 2,000 years ago, and yet the wisdom Marcus practiced in that room is the exact wisdom that most people today desperately need and almost no one is truly teaching. Today, we are going to go into that wisdom completely. This is Stoic Ascension. Subscribe right now because what we build on this channel is not motivation that fades by tomorrow. It is philosophy that changes who you are from the inside out. Every video goes deeper. You do not want to miss what comes next. What anger actually is. Before you can master anger, you have to understand it precisely, not generally, not vaguely, with the kind of clear-eyed specificity the Stoics applied to everything they examined. Anger is not an event. Anger is not something that happens to you from the outside. Anger is a response generated inside you, by you, in reaction to a judgment your mind has made about something that occurred. This distinction is not academic. It is the most important thing you will hear about anger, because it is the thing that makes mastery possible. If anger were something done to you from outside, you would be permanently at its mercy. Every provocation would automatically produce rage, and your only option would be to manage the aftermath. But if anger is something generated inside you by a judgment, a story, an interpretation you assign to something that occurred, then the point of intervention is not the aftermath, it is the judgment. Epictetus made this the foundation of everything he taught. He said that people are disturbed not by what happens, but by their opinion about what happens. Anger is not in the insult, it is in the meaning you give the insult. Anger is not in the betrayal. It is in the story you tell about what the betrayal means, about you, about them, about the world. The Stoics were not saying your anger is irrational or unjustified. Sometimes what provokes anger is genuinely wrong. Sometimes the injustice is real. Sometimes the betrayal is real. Sometimes the disrespect is deliberate and the anger it produces is a completely understandable human response. But understanding and mastery are different things. You can understand why a fire started and still let it burn the house down. Mastery means understanding the fire well enough to choose what you do with it. And choosing requires knowing where the fire actually begins. It begins in the judgment. And the judgment is yours. The anatomy of a rage that destroyed everything. There is a story from ancient history that Stoic philosophers return to repeatedly as a study in what unmastered anger costs. Alexander the Great, perhaps the most militarily successful human being who ever lived, a man who conquered the known world before he was 30, had a childhood friend named Cletus. They had grown up together, trained together, fought together. Cletus had once saved Alexander's life in battle, stepping between him and a sword that would have ended the conquest of Persia before it truly began. Years later, at a celebration dinner, Cletus drank too much and began criticizing Alexander. He questioned his decisions. He compared him unfavorably to his father Philip. He said things that were perhaps true, but were said badly, publicly, in front of Alexander's generals and companions. Alexander's anger rose fast. His friends saw it and tried to intervene. They physically held him back, pulled him away, tried to give him the space to let the heat pass. He broke free. He grabbed a spear from a guard's hand and drove it through his oldest friend, the man who had saved his life. Dead in seconds, because Alexander's anger moved faster than his wisdom. The accounts say Alexander spent 3 days afterward in inconsolable grief.
that he wept over Cletus's body, that he refused to eat, refused to see anyone, refused to accept what he had done. But Cletus did not return. The spear could not be unthrown. 3 days of grief could not buy back 1 second of the pause that might have changed everything. This is what unmastered anger costs. Not always a spear, but always something real. Always something that cannot be fully undone. Always a version of yourself you did not want to be, expressed in a moment where your training, or its absence, was fully revealed. The Stoics told this story not to condemn Alexander, but to illuminate the price. Anger that moves faster than wisdom always costs more than the provocation was worth. Always. Why the Stoics took anger more seriously than almost any other emotion. Of all the emotions the Stoic philosophers examined, anger received perhaps the most sustained and serious attention, and the reason is revealing. Other difficult emotions, fear, grief, anxiety, longing, tend to turn inward. They damage primarily the person experiencing them. They are painful, sometimes deeply so, but their destruction is largely contained. Anger is different. Anger reaches outward. It does not only damage the person feeling it, it damages relationships, families, communities, reputations, careers, and in the case of people with significant power, entire nations. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher and advisor to the Emperor Nero, wrote an entire book about anger. Not a chapter, a book. He considered it the most dangerous of all human passions, not because it was the most painful, but because it was the most destructive. He watched Nero, up close, let anger govern decisions of state, and he understood, in a very personal and frightening way, what happens when power and unmastered rage occupy the same person. He wrote that anger is the most ugly of all emotions when seen clearly, that the face of an angry person, twisted, flushed, eyes changed, is barely recognizable as the face of the person you know, that the angry person is temporarily not themselves, that they have been replaced, for the duration of the rage, by something that does not share their values, their wisdom, or their long-term interests. He called it a brief madness, and he meant that literally. The neurological state of genuine rage shares characteristics with psychotic episodes: narrowed perception, distorted judgment, reduced capacity to process consequence. The person in the grip of real anger is genuinely, temporarily, less able to think than they normally are. And yet this is the state in which most people make their most consequential interpersonal decisions, the state in which they say the things that cannot be unsaid, send the messages they cannot retrieve, make the choices that last for years. Seneca said, if you would not make a major financial decision while severely intoxicated, you should not make a major relational decision while severely angry. The impairment is comparable, the consequences are often worse. The 3 stages of anger the Stoics identified. The Stoics were precise in their analysis. They did not treat anger as a single event, but as a process with distinct stages, each one offering different opportunities for intervention. The first stage they identified was the initial physical response, the moment before the conscious mind has fully engaged. The heat in the chest, the tensing of the jaw, the quickening of the breath, the sudden narrowing of attention onto the thing that provoked it. This stage is involuntary. The Stoics were honest about this. You cannot stop the first physical ripple of anger any more than you can stop your eye from blinking when something moves toward it. The body responds before the mind decides. This is important because many people feel shame about this first stage. They believe that feeling the initial surge of anger means they have already failed. The Stoics explicitly released people from this shame. The first movement is physiological. It is not a moral failure. It is a human response. What matters is the second stage. The second stage is where the conscious mind engages and either fans the flame or allows it to cool.
This is the stage where the story begins. The interpretation activates. The meaning is assigned. The narrative of what just happened and what it means and what should therefore happen next begins to construct itself. This is where the Stoic training intervenes. Not at the first stage, where intervention is impossible. At the second stage, where the judgment is forming and the story is being written, and where a practiced mind can pause the automatic sequence and ask the questions that change everything. The third stage is the expression. What you say, what you do, how the anger moves outward into the world. By the time most people reach this stage, the story has been fully written and the emotion fully built. Intervention here is still possible, but far more difficult.
This is why the Stoics focused their training on the second stage, the interpretation, rather than trying to suppress the third. You do not master anger by gritting your teeth and forcing silence while the rage builds unchallenged inside you. You master it by changing what happens in the second stage so that by the time you reach the third, what is being expressed is not suppressed fury, but genuinely considered response. The questions that change everything. The Stoic practice at the second stage, the interpretation stage, is built around specific questions. Questions that, when asked genuinely and consistently, interrupt the automatic construction of rage-producing stories. The first question is this actually as bad as it feels right now? The mind in the grip of early anger inflates. It magnifies. It assigns maximum significance to the provocations and minimum significance to everything that would contextualize it. The question does not dismiss the provocation. It asks for accurate assessment. An accurate assessment almost always produces a smaller number than the inflated one the untrained mind generates automatically. The second question is, what is actually within my control here? Anger almost always targets something on the uncontrollable side of the line. Another person's behavior, words that were already said, a decision that was already made. Asking this question redirects attention from the uncontrollable, where anger produces nothing useful, to the controllable, where something can actually be done. The third question is, who do I want to be in this moment? This is the most powerful of the three because it appeals not to reason, but to identity. The person you are trying to become, the character you are building through every choice you make, would they respond this way? Is the response forming in you right now the response of the person you most deeply want to be? Or is it the response of the part of you that has been hijacked by an emotion that does not share your long-term values? The fourth question is, what does this person need from me right now? And is anger able to provide?
This question shifts the frame entirely from what has been done to me to what is actually needed here. And in almost every situation, the honest answer is that anger cannot provide what is genuinely needed. Understanding cannot come from rage. Resolution cannot come from rage. Genuine repair of anything damaged cannot come from rage. Asking what is actually needed makes it immediately clear that the tool you are reaching for is not the tool the situation requires. These four questions are not a script to recite mechanically. They are directions of attention, ways of interrupting the automatic story long enough to tell a more accurate one. Practice them enough and they stop being questions you have to consciously ask. They become the automatic second stage, replacing the rage-building story with the wisdom-seeking one. What anger is really protecting? Here is something the Stoics understood and most modern conversations about anger miss completely. Anger almost always has something underneath it, something it is standing in front of, guarding, protecting from view. Something more vulnerable than rage, more honest than fury, more genuinely human than the red-faced response the world sees. Beneath most anger is fear. Fear of being seen as weak, fear of losing something important, fear of being wrong, fear of not mattering, fear of a future that the provocation seems to threaten. Beneath most anger is hurt, the pain of being dismissed, disrespected, misunderstood, betrayed. The wound of caring about something that treated your caring carelessly. Beneath most anger is grief, the loss of something you expected or hoped for or trusted, the death of a version of the future you were living toward. Anger rises faster than these other emotions. It feels stronger. It offers the immediate relief of action, of direction, of something to push against, and so it covers the more vulnerable thing, and the world sees the rage instead of the wound. The Stoics were not cold analysts of emotion. They were practitioners of genuine self-knowledge. And genuine self-knowledge requires asking, in the middle of anger, not just what provoked me, but what was actually hurt. Not just who angered me, but what in me was afraid, grieving, or wounded. This question does not produce weakness. It produces precision. Because responding to what is actually happening, the fear, the hurt, the grief, is far more effective and far more honest than responding to the armor that covers it.
When you begin asking what your anger is protecting, your relationship with it changes completely. It stops being an enemy to be suppressed or a force to be released. It becomes a signal, a messenger, a map to something inside you that needs attention, care, or honest examination. And a message, unlike a rage, can be responded to wisely. The cost of suppression versus the cost of expression. One of the most common misunderstandings about Stoic anger management is the belief that the Stoics taught suppression, that they recommended simply forcing the anger down, holding it in, presenting a calm exterior while the fury burned inside. This is not what they taught, and it matters enormously. Suppression, the active pushing down of an emotion without examining or processing it, has costs that are well documented. Suppressed anger does not disappear. It accumulates.
It comes out sideways, in passive aggression, in sudden disproportionate explosions triggered by something small, in chronic physical tension, in a slow emotional numbing that eventually affects not just anger, but the full range of human feeling. The Stoics were not teaching suppression, they were teaching transformation. The goal was not to prevent the anger from being felt, it was to feel it clearly enough, examine it honestly enough, and understand it deeply enough that what eventually came out was not raw rage, but considered response. There is a profound difference between a response chosen after feeling anger clearly and a reaction expelled before the feeling has been examined at all. The first is an expression of the person you are working to become. The second is an expression of the most automatic, least reflective version of yourself. The Stoic practice allows the anger to exist, fully, honestly, without shame, while refusing to give it control of behavior before wisdom has had its say. Feel everything. Express from your values. This is not the suppression of emotion, this is the mastery of it. Applying the practice to the people closest to you. Let us be specific about where this practice is hardest, because anger in the abstract is one thing. Anger with your partner, your parent, your child, your closest friend, that is an entirely different challenge. The people closest to you have access to you that no one else has. They know the exact words, the exact tones, the exact topics that can bypass your training and land directly in the most undefended parts of your interior. They're not usually trying to wound you, but when they do, the wound goes deeper than anything a stranger could deliver. This is why most people find that their worst anger, the anger they are most ashamed of, the anger that has done the most damage in their lives, happens not with strangers or enemies, but with the people they love most. The Stoics understood this dynamic. Marcus Aurelius wrote specifically about extending patience to the people who were closest to him, noting that the difficulty of doing so was not evidence that they were particularly difficult, but that proximity removes the social guard that governs interactions with those we know less well. With strangers, we are performing. With those we love, we are simply ourselves. And the self, without its social performance, is more reactive, more vulnerable, more likely to respond from the unexamined place. The practice required here is not different from the general practice. It is the same questions, the same pause, the same honest examination of what is being protected beneath the anger. But it requires a specific additional ingredient that the Stoics called magnanimity, a kind of generous spaciousness in how you interpret the other person's actions. Before concluding that your partner meant to wound you, consider the more charitable interpretation. Before deciding that your parent's criticism was deliberate cruelty, consider that it might be fear expressing itself poorly. Before responding to your child's defiance as disrespect requiring force, consider what the defiance might be communicating that they do not have the words for. Magnanimity does not mean excusing everything. It means starting from the most generous available interpretation rather than the most threatening one.
And the most generous interpretation is, in the experience of most people who try it, closer to the truth than the threat-based one. Anger and justice. When anger is appropriate, the Stoics were not pacifists. They were not teaching a philosophy of permanent meekness in the face of genuine injustice. And it is important to name this clearly, because a misunderstanding here can produce not wisdom, but a harmful passivity that allows real wrongdoing to go unchallenged. There is such a thing as appropriate anger. The Stoics called it a righteous impulse, the response of a person who perceives genuine wrong and feels moved to address it. Not hot rage, not personal fury seeking an outlet, but a clear, grounded, values-based response to something that ought not to be. Marcus Aurelius acted against injustice constantly. He changed laws that treated people unfairly. He challenged practices that caused genuine harm. He responded to genuine wrongdoing with the full authority available to him. The difference between this and unmastered anger is not the strength of the response. It is the source. Unmastered anger acts from the part of you that has been wounded, threatened, or humiliated. It acts to relieve its own pain, to restore its own dignity, to punish the source of its discomfort. It is primarily about you. Appropriate anger acts from the part of you that is committed to what is right, regardless of your personal stake in the outcome. It is not relieving its own pain. It is addressing a genuine wrong. It is primarily about the wrong itself. The test the Stoics would apply is simple. If this situation did not affect you personally, if the wrong were being done to someone else, someone you did not know, would you still feel moved to respond? If the answer is yes, the anger may be genuine righteous impulse. If the answer is no, the anger is personal, and the Stoic work is to examine what is personal about it before allowing it to act. This distinction does not always produce clear answers. Real situations are complex. Personal stake and genuine principle can coexist. But asking the question consistently builds a relationship with your anger that allows you to know, over time, when it is speaking for your values and when it is speaking for your wounds. The long-term practice, what changes over time. Mastering anger is not something that happens once and then remains. It is not an insight you have that permanently transforms your response to provocation. It is a practice, a daily, ongoing, unglamorous practice that accumulates over time into a genuinely different relationship with one of the most powerful emotions a human being can feel. In the early stages of the practice, the pause comes after the reaction. You say the thing or do the thing, and then you pause and examine and wish you had done it differently. This is not failure. This is the beginning of practice. The examination happening after the reaction is still examination. It builds the capacity that will eventually move the examination earlier in the sequence. In the middle stages, the pause comes during the reaction. You feel the anger rising, you feel the words or the action forming, and something in your training creates a moment of distance. You do not always use it. Sometimes the momentum is too strong and the reaction happens anyway. But the moment of distance was there, and that matters. In the later stages, for those who sustain the practice, the pause comes before the reaction. The anger still arrives. It always arrives. The first stage cannot be eliminated.
But the second stage, the story-building stage, has been so thoroughly inhabited by training that wisdom moves into it naturally before rage has fully formed. The response that emerges is not suppressed fury. It is the genuine, chosen, values-aligned response of the person you have been practicing to become. This progression does not happen in weeks. For some people, it takes months. For most, it takes years of genuine practice. The Stoics knew this and were explicit about it. They were not offering a quick fix. They were offering a direction, a way of living with anger that, practiced consistently over a life, produces a person whose inner world is genuinely different from the one they started with. Marcus Aurelius was still practicing in his journals at the height of his power, decades into his philosophical life, still reminding himself of principles he understood intellectually but needed to keep returning to in practice. Still examining his own reactions, still finding places where the training had not yet fully taken hold. He was not ashamed of this. He understood that the practice of wisdom is not a project with a completion date. It is a direction you walk in every day for the whole of your life, getting gradually and meaningfully better at something that is never perfectly mastered. This is the Stoic invitation, not perfection, direction. Not the absence of anger, but its gradual, deliberate, principled transformation into something that serves rather than destroys. What mastered anger looks like in a life. It looks like the person in the meeting who hears a comment designed to diminish them, who feels the heat rise, and who pauses long enough to respond from their actual position rather than from the wound. It looks like the parent who is at the end of their patience, who feels the rage of exhaustion and frustration, and who looks at the child in front of them and chooses, in that specific moment, to reach for understanding instead. It looks like the person who has been genuinely wronged, who has real reason to be angry, whose anger is legitimate, and who expresses that anger clearly, directly, and without the kind of destructive amplification that turns justified grievance into something the other person can only defend against rather than hear. It does not look like a person who never feels anger. It looks like a person whose anger has been placed in service of their values rather than allowed to override them. It looks, in other words, like the kind of person Marcus Aurelius was working daily, imperfectly, and with genuine commitment to become. The same kind of person you are working to become by being here, doing this work, taking these ideas seriously enough to let them ask something real of you.
You have been angry in ways you are not proud of. So has every person who has ever lived. The anger you have expressed from your worst place, the things said, the silences weaponized, the coldness deployed, the moments of genuine rage that cost you something or someone you valued, those are not evidence that you are beyond the reach of this work. They are the reason for it. Every person who has ever practiced Stoic philosophy began where you are, including Marcus Aurelius, including Epictetus, including Seneca, who wrote the most extensive work on anger in human history and who, by his own admission, was not always its master in his own life. They began with the recognition that anger was costing them something they did not want to pay, and they chose, imperfectly and persistently, to do the work of understanding it well enough to change their relationship with it. That choice is available to you today, not as a grand transformation, as a first step, as the decision to watch yourself a little more honestly, to ask the questions a little more genuinely, to give the pause a little more room than you gave it yesterday. One step, then another, then another. This is how the work is done. This is how the person is built. This is how anger stops being the thing that runs your worst moments and starts being the signal that points toward your deepest growth. Subscribe to Stoic Ascension right now. Every video on this channel is built for exactly this, the deep, real interior work that changes not just behavior, but character. Turn on your notifications because what comes next goes even further into the philosophy that builds lives that are genuinely, durably worth living. The anger you carry has been trying to tell you something for a long time. It is time to learn its language. It is time to master it.
Don't let anything affect you. They burned everything he owned, his manuscripts, his life's work, 20 years of writing reduced to ash in a single afternoon. He watched it happen from across the street. A neighbor who had always resented him had reported him to the authorities. The accusation was false, as everyone in the village knew, but truth had never been the point. The point was destruction. The point was watching this man lose everything he had spent his life building. And so they came. They took the books first, then the papers, then everything else. They piled it in the courtyard and set it alight while the crowd gathered to watch. His name was Epictetus. Not the historical Epictetus, but a man who had read Epictetus so deeply and for so long that the philosophy had become something more than words on a page. It had become the architecture of his interior world. He stood across the street and watched the smoke rise. People in the crowd turned to look at him, expecting collapse, expecting the kind of devastation that the destruction of 20 years of work should produce, expecting rage or tears or the broken posture of a person whose life has just been reduced to ash. What they saw instead confused them. He was still. Not the stillness of shock, not the frozen stillness of someone who has not yet processed what they are seeing. The quiet, deliberate stillness of a person who was feeling everything, genuinely, completely, and who had somewhere inside himself a foundation so stable that even this could not move it. After a long time, he turned to the person standing nearest to him, a young man who had come to witness the spectacle and who was watching him with wide, uncertain eyes. He said, "They burned the paper. They could not burn what I learned from it." Then he walked home, and the next morning he began writing again. This is not a story about being unaffected by life. This is a story about being affected by everything, fully, honestly, deeply, without being destroyed by any of it. About having something inside you that the world can reach but cannot take. About the difference between being touched by life and being undone by it. That difference is what we are building today. This is Stoic Ascension. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on your notifications because every video here is built for exactly this depth. The philosophy, the practice, and the complete interior transformation that comes from taking these ideas seriously enough to actually live by them. What comes after this builds directly on everything you are about to hear, what it actually means to not be affected. Before anything else, we have to be precise about what this phrase means, because the most common misunderstanding of it is also the most damaging one. Not letting anything affect you does not mean feeling nothing. It does not mean building walls so high that life cannot reach your interior. It does not mean the cold, defended numbness of someone who has decided that being hurt is too expensive and has therefore closed themselves off from the full range of human experience. That is not the Stoic ideal. That is not strength. That is a different kind of prison. The Stoics were people of deep feeling. Marcus Aurelius grieved the deaths of his children with raw, genuine pain. Seneca wrote about friendship and loss with an emotional honesty that still moves people 2,000 years later.
Epictetus, who had suffered more than most people reading or listening to this will ever suffer, was not a man without feeling. He was a man whose feeling did not govern his choices. This is the real distinction. This is what not being affected actually means. It means that nothing outside you has the automatic power to determine your inner state. That the events of your life, the disappointments, the rejections, the failures, the moments of genuine loss can land on you, can be felt fully, can be grieved honestly, without having the power to reach the deepest part of what you are and restructure it according to their demands. It means your peace is not contingent on the world's cooperation. Your sense of worth is not dependent on other people's assessments. Your capacity to function is not held hostage by circumstances being favorable. Your identity does not collapse when external things are removed. It means you can be in the storm without being the storm. You can feel the full force of what arrives without becoming it. This is not a small thing. This is one of the rarest and most powerful conditions a human being can achieve. And the Stoics built the most precise and battle-tested system ever developed for achieving it. Why most people are permanently affected by everything. To understand how to build this capacity, you first have to understand with honesty why most people lack it. Most people have built their interior lives on foundations that were never designed to hold the weight of actual human experience. They have built their sense of self on how they are perceived, on whether they are liked, approved of, recognized, included. And because perception is entirely in other people's hands, because it can shift without warning for reasons that have nothing to do with who you actually are, a self built on perception is a self that is permanently at the mercy of whatever the room decides to think. They have built their sense of security on what they have, on the job, the relationship, the status, the money, the health. And because all of these things are temporary, because every one of them can be altered or removed by circumstances that are not under your control, a security built on having is a security that lives in constant low-level terror of losing. They have built their sense of meaning on outcomes, on whether the project succeeds, whether the goal is reached, whether the plan unfolds the way they imagined it. And because outcomes are never fully within anyone's control, because effort and result are related but not identical, because the world is complex and unpredictable and frequently indifferent to individual plans, a meaning built on outcomes is a meaning that is always one failure away from collapse. These are not character flaws. They are the natural result of growing up in a world that consistently, from the beginning, teaches people to locate their value outside themselves, to earn worth through performance, to feel secure through accumulation, to find meaning through achievement. It is a framework that guarantees fragility, because every pillar it rests on can be removed. The Stoics saw this clearly and built something different. A self resting not on perception, possession, or outcome, but on something that nothing outside can touch. Something genuinely and permanently yours. The interior citadel.
Marcus Aurelius used a specific image in his journals that has become one of the most enduring in all of philosophy. He called it the inner citadel. A citadel is a fortress built within a city, the last line of defense, the place where what is most essential is protected when everything else has fallen. And Marcus used this image deliberately to describe the interior space of a human being's own judgment, intention, and chosen response. The outer walls of a life can be breached, reputation can be damaged, relationships can end, health can fail, projects can collapse. The outer circumstances of any life are vulnerable to forces that are never fully within anyone's control. But the inner citadel, the space of your own genuine judgment, your own authentic intention, your own deliberate choice of how to respond to what arrives, this, Marcus argued, is genuinely impregnable. Not because nothing can try to breach it, but because the only thing that can actually compromise it is yourself. Only your own choices, your own surrender, your own decision to abandon your values under pressure, these alone can breach the inner citadel. Everything else, every external force, every circumstance, every person who intends you harm or simply moves through your life with careless disregard, these can damage the outer walls. They cannot reach what is inside unless you open the gate. This image is not merely poetic. It is a precise description of how the Stoic interior life is structured, and understanding it changes the entire relationship to external events. When something difficult happens, the question is not, how do I prevent this from affecting me? That question is already conceding the wrong premise. The question is, does this reach the citadel? Does this penetrate to the inner space of my genuine judgment and authentic response? Or does it affect the outer walls? Does it produce difficulty, pain, loss, genuine hardship, while the core of what I am remains intact and functioning? The outer walls will always take damage. That is what outer walls are for. But a person with a genuine inner citadel, built through the consistent practice of Stoic principles, through the daily discipline of returning to what is genuinely theirs, can sustain significant outer damage without losing the thing that actually matters. This is the architecture of a person who does not let anything affect them in the deepest sense. Not invulnerable, inwardly secure. The mechanics of being affected. Let us get precise about how being affected actually works, because precision here is the beginning of genuine mastery. When something external happens, when someone criticizes you, when a plan fails, when you are treated unjustly, when something you valued is taken from you, a process begins in your interior world that most people experience as automatic, involuntary, and outside their control. First, the event is perceived. Your senses register that something has occurred. Then, almost instantaneously, your mind assigns meaning to the event. This is the critical stage, the stage that determines everything that follows. And it happens so fast, so automatically, that most people never notice it occurring. They move directly from the event to the emotional response, and experience the emotional response as if it were caused directly by the event. But the event did not cause the response. The meaning you assigned to the event caused the response.
And the meaning is yours. Someone fails to acknowledge you in a meeting. That is the event. The meaning might be, they do not respect me. Or it might be, they were distracted today. Or it might be, their acknowledgement was never mine to depend on. 3 completely different meanings. 3 completely different emotional responses. 3 completely different downstream effects on your day, your relationship with that person, your relationship with yourself. The event was identical in all 3. What differed was the interpretation. And the interpretation is the place where your genuine freedom lives. This is what Epictetus meant when he said that people are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments about events. The disturbance is real,
the feeling is real, but its source is not the external world. Its source is the story the mind tells about the external world. And the story is a choice, unconscious perhaps in the untrained mind, but a choice nonetheless. And choices with practice can be examined, questioned, and changed. The person who does not let anything affect them is not the person who never encounters difficulty. It is the person who has learned to examine the story before the story becomes the experience. The 5 things that most affect people and the Stoic response to each. There are 5 categories of external events that most consistently compromise people's interior stability. 5 types of experience that most reliably breach the outer walls and, for the person without a genuine inner citadel, penetrate all the way to the core. Understanding each of them and understanding the specific Stoic practice for each is how the general philosophy becomes a concrete, daily, workable discipline. What other people think of you. This is the one that most deeply and most constantly affects the largest number of people. The worry about perception, the anxiety about judgment, the modification of behavior based on imagined assessments from people who may not be thinking about you at all. The Stoic response begins with a question that Marcus Aurelius asked himself regularly. Does this person's opinion have any bearing on whether what I am doing is right or wrong? The answer, in almost every case, is no. A good action does not become better because someone approves of it. A right choice does not become wrong because someone criticizes it. The quality of your life is not measured by the approval of others. It is measured by the alignment between your actions and your genuine values. This is not a counsel of arrogance or indifference to feedback. Genuine feedback, honest, considered, offered from care, is worth receiving and examining. But the reflexive, unexamined anxiety about whether people like you, approve of you, are impressed by you, are talking about you well or badly, this anxiety is not protective. It is not useful. It is a constant drain on the energy that belongs to the actual work of your actual life. Practice returning each time this anxiety arises to the single question that matters. Did I act in alignment with who I am trying to become? If yes, the opinions of others are interesting data at most. They are not the verdict. You are the verdict. Failure and disappointment. Failure affects people so deeply because most people have, without fully realizing it, made their sense of worth contingent on their success. So when success does not arrive, when the effort does not produce the expected result, when the plan collapses, when the outcome falls short of the hope, it feels like more than a setback. It feels like evidence of something fundamental, evidence of inadequacy, of unworthiness, of a future that is closing. The Stoic response is to make a precise distinction that changes everything. The distinction between what you control and what you do not. You control the quality of your effort, the honesty of your intention, the integrity of your approach. You do not control the outcome. The outcome is the result of your effort combined with factors, market conditions, timing, the choices of other people, the unpredictable complexity of the world that were never fully yours to command. This means that genuine failure, the only failure that the Stoic framework recognizes as actually meaningful, is not the failure to achieve the outcome. It is the failure to give your genuine best to the effort. A person who prepares with full commitment, executes with full integrity, and does not achieve the result has not failed in any sense that should diminish them. They have done everything that was theirs to do. The outcome belongs to something larger than themselves. This reframing is not a rationalization of mediocrity. It is a precise allocation of where your energy belongs and where your self-assessment should be grounded. Grounded in the quality of your effort and your character. And failure, as the world defines it, loses most of its power to reach your interior.
Difficult people. There are people who seem almost specifically designed to disturb your peace, who say the thing that lands wrong, who treat you in ways that feel dismissive, disrespectful, or deliberately unkind, who consistently fail to meet you where you are, whose behavior seems to bypass all of your training and reach something raw and reactive that you did not know was still there. Marcus Aurelius dealt with this at a scale most people cannot imagine. He was surrounded by people with enormous egos, enormous ambitions, and significant power to cause damage. And he returned to the same practice repeatedly in his journals. He reminded himself that difficult people are acting from their own incomplete understanding, that no one does harm knowingly, that even deliberate cruelty comes from a person who has, in some distorted way, justified it to themselves, that their behavior is a reflection of the interior world they are carrying, not a verdict on yours. He also reminded himself that he was built for community, that withdrawing from difficult people, cutting himself off from the friction of genuine human engagement, was a withdrawal from his own deepest nature, that the practice was not to avoid difficult people, but to learn to move through their difficulty without being altered by it. This does not mean you accept mistreatment. It does not mean you remain in environments that damage you. It means that the damage, when it comes, stays on the outer walls.
It does not reach the interior place where your sense of yourself lives. And from that place of interior stability, you can make clear, wise, values-aligned decisions about how to respond, rather than reactive, wounded, self-protective decisions that often create more damage than the original difficulty. Uncertainty and the unknown. The mind abhors uncertainty the way nature abhors a vacuum. It will fill the unknown with something, almost always something worse than the reality, almost always a worst-case projection built from fear rather than evidence. And most people, rather than addressing this pattern, have organized their entire lives around avoiding it. They choose comfort over growth because growth involves uncertainty. They stay in familiar situations that have stopped serving them because the unfamiliar is unknown. They sacrifice the life they actually want for the life they can predict. The Stoic response to uncertainty begins with this precise recognition. The anxiety about the unknown future is always worse than the actual future. The future, when it arrives, is a specific thing that can be dealt with as a specific thing. The imagined future is unlimited in its darkness. It has no constraint. It can be as terrible as the untrained mind wants to make it. Practice bringing your attention back every time it projects into uncertain futures to the only place where anything real is happening, the present moment. Not as a spiritual practice of forced acceptance, but as a practical recognition that the present moment is the only place where you have any actual capacity to act. Anxiety about the future does not prepare you for it. Genuine presence in the current moment does. And for the uncertainties that cannot be resolved, the outcomes that are genuinely unknown, the futures that depend on too many variables to predict, the Stoic practice is to prepare as thoroughly as possible and then release the outcome entirely. Do everything that is yours to do, and then trust that whatever arrives, it will be workable. Because every difficulty that has ever arrived in your life has, in fact, been workable. You are here. You have continued. The evidence of your own survival is the most honest testimony available that what comes next will also be survivable. Loss. Loss is the hardest. The loss of people you love. The loss of health. The loss of a version of the future you had built your hope around. The loss of what you worked for, what you built, what you protected with care. There is no Stoic practice that makes loss painless, and any philosophy that claimed to do so would be lying to you. Loss hurts. It is supposed to hurt. The pain is proportional to the love and care and investment that preceded it, and a life without the pain of loss is a life that did not love or invest or care deeply enough to lose anything of significance. The Stoic practice around loss is not pain elimination. It is pain contextualization.
It is remembering that everything you ever had, you were always going to lose. Not because life is cruel, but because everything is temporary. Your relationship with impermanence, whether it is one of shocked disbelief every time something ends, or the measured, honest acceptance of a person who has been practicing the awareness of impermanence daily, determines how much additional suffering is added to the inevitable pain of the loss itself. The loss itself is the loss. What the Stoic practice removes is the additional suffering that comes from insisting the loss should not have happened, from arguing with the permanent fact of its having occurred, from allowing the loss to restructure the entire story of who you are and what your life means and what you are capable of. Grieve fully. The Stoics never counseled against grief. They counseled against the kind of grief that becomes identity. The grief that does not move, that calcifies, that becomes the lens through which everything that comes after is seen and found wanting. Feel the loss completely. Honor what was. And then, when the grief has moved through you rather than staying in you, begin again. Not because you have forgotten, because you are more than what you have lost, and the life in front of you is real and present and worth the full measure of your engagement. Building immunity through daily practice, the inner citadel is not built in a single revelation. It is not achieved through a single commitment or a single powerful experience of remaining stable in the face of difficulty. It is built the same way all genuine things are built, through repetition, through the daily accumulation of small practices that compound over time into a different kind of person. The morning practice is the foundation. Before the world begins its demands, before other people's urgency begins flooding your attention, create a space that belongs entirely to your own deliberate thought. Rehearse the principles. Remind yourself of what is yours and what is not. Anticipate the difficulties the day might bring, not to dread them, but to meet them with a prepared mind rather than a surprised one. Decide in advance that whatever arrives today, you will meet it from the inner citadel rather than the outer wall. This preparation does not guarantee that you will succeed. Some days the difficulty will arrive with more force than the morning's preparation can fully meet. But the practice of preparing, consistently, daily, whether or not you feel like it, gradually shifts the default. What requires effort in the beginning becomes habit over time. What requires conscious choice eventually becomes character. The evening practice is the honest accounting, not self-punishment, not the cataloging of every failure with the intention of feeling appropriately bad about it. An honest examination conducted with the same rigor you would apply to anything else that matters to you, of where you met today's difficulties from the inner citadel and where you did not, where you maintained your values under pressure and where you departed from them, where you chose your response and where you were simply reactive, where the practice held and where it showed its current edges. These edges are not failures. They are the map of where the practice needs to go deeper. They are information, honestly gathered and honestly used, that points toward the next day's work.
And then, having gathered the information honestly, put the day down. Not with guilt, not with the intention of carrying today's failures into tomorrow as punishment, with the clean, simple Stoic commitment to begin again in the morning. What stops being affected actually looks like in a life. It is worth spending time with the concrete reality of this, because the abstract description of interior stability can seem disconnected from the texture of actual daily experience. The person who does not let anything affect them, in the Stoic sense, does not move through their life with a serene, untouched expression of someone who never encounters difficulty. They encounter the same difficulties as everyone else, sometimes more, because the life of genuine engagement that this philosophy produces is larger, more exposed, more fully inhabited than the careful, risk-avoiding life most people default into. What is different is the duration and the depth of the effect. When something difficult arrives, it is felt immediately and honestly. It is not denied or performed around or suppressed. It is real and it is acknowledged as real, but it does not compound.
The difficult thing does not become the story of the day, which becomes the story of the week, which becomes the evidence for a narrative about the nature of the life and the person living it. It remains what it is, a specific difficulty, felt specifically, addressed specifically, and then it moves through rather than staying in. The conversations do not replay for hours afterward. The criticism does not circle back obsessively. The rejection does not expand to fill the available space of the interior. The failure does not become the lens through which everything else is seen. This is what immunity actually looks like, not the absence of being touched, the presence of a self that can be touched without being consumed. It looks like being able to receive difficult feedback and extract from it what is useful without being collapsed by it. Like being able to disagree with someone important without becoming destabilized by their displeasure. Like being able to invest fully in an outcome and genuinely release it when it does not arrive. Like being able to end something that mattered without rewriting the value of what it was while it was real. It looks like moving through a difficult day and arriving at the evening still recognizably yourself, still capable of genuine thought, still in possession of the values and the direction and the relationship with your own interior that you began the day with. This is available, not immediately, not without practice, not without the willingness to be imperfect at it for a long time while the practice builds what the practice is designed to build, but available. Genuinely, practically, experientially available to any person willing to commit to the work with the consistency and honesty that the work requires.
The person you become. The deepest reason to practice not letting anything affect you is not the relief it provides in difficult moments. It is not even the stability it creates in daily experience. The deepest reason is what it makes possible to become. A person who is chronically affected by everything external, whose peace rises and falls with circumstances, whose sense of worth rises and falls with perception, whose capacity to think clearly rises and falls with how events are going. That person spends a very large portion of their life in reactive mode, in damage control, in the management of the interior consequences of the exterior world's constant movements. They have very little left for building. But the person who has developed genuine interior stability, who can move through difficulty without being consumed by it, who can feel everything without being commanded by anything, who can lose the outer walls without losing the citadel. That person has something that most people never have enough of. Room. Interior room. The space inside their own life to actually think, to create, to connect genuinely, to build something real, to become more fully what they are capable of being. This room is the gift that the practice gives. Not just peace, though it gives that. Not just resilience, though it gives that too. The room to become someone worth being. Someone who is not constantly consumed by the management of their own reactivity. Someone who has enough of their own interior available to actually show up fully. For their work, for the people they love, for the life they want to be living. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire with this room. Epictetus built one of the most enduring philosophies in human history with this room. Ordinary people, people without historical significance, people whose names no one will remember in 100 years, have used this room to love their families fully, to build their work with genuine care, to move through their ordinary and sometimes extraordinary lives with a quality of presence and intention that made those lives worth living from the inside. That is what is available on the other side of this practice. Not immunity from life, genuine engagement with it. The full, honest, deeply felt engagement of a person who cannot be undone by what they encounter. Who can walk into any room, face any difficulty, sustain any loss, endure any criticism, and remain through all of it recognizably and fully themselves. The commitment. Everything we have covered today asks something real of you. Not a dramatic gesture, not a single powerful moment of decision that changes everything instantly. Something harder and more valuable than either of those things, a daily commitment. The commitment to practice, imperfectly and consistently, the discipline of building and protecting the inner citadel. To examine the meanings your mind assigns to events before those meanings become your experience. To locate your security in what is genuinely yours rather than in what the world can take.
to feel everything fully while allowing nothing to command your response before wisdom has had its say. This commitment will be tested. Every day will test it in small ways. Some days will test it in large ones. The test is not failure. The test is the curriculum. It is through being tested that the practice deepens, that the citadel strengthens, that the person you are working to become takes on more and more genuine shape.
Begin today, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances are more favorable, not when you have read enough or understood enough or prepared enough. Begin in the very next moment something external tries to determine your interior state. Notice the meaning your mind is assigning. Ask whether that meaning is the only available one. Ask whether it serves who you are trying to become. Ask whether the event, whatever it is, has actually reached the inner citadel, or whether it has only touched the outer walls, which were always meant to take the hits. And from that noticing, from that honest examination, from that deliberate choice to respond rather than react, begin building the person who does not let anything take what was never theirs to take. The person who burned his manuscripts and walked home and began again the next morning. The person who stood in the fire and remained themselves. The person you are becoming. Subscribe to Stoic Ascension right now. Turn on your notifications. Every video on this channel is built for this exact depth. The complete, honest, philosophically grounded work of becoming a person that life cannot unmake. What comes next builds on everything you just heard, and you do not want to miss it. Nothing outside you gets to decide what is inside you. That was always your choice. Begin choosing.
This is how you win. He lost the election 3 times. 3 times the people he had dedicated his life to serving turned their backs on him. 3 times he stood in front of the results and absorbed the verdict of rejection from the very community he had poured everything into. 3 times he went home to a family that watched him walk through the door carrying the particular weight of a person who tried completely and still came up short. Most people would have stopped. Most people would have found a quieter life. Most people, after the 3rd defeat, would have constructed a very reasonable story about why continuing was foolish, about why wisdom meant knowing when to quit, about why the pattern of rejection was information rather than obstacle. He did not stop, not because he was stubborn, not because he lacked the intelligence to read the room, but because somewhere in the years of reading and practicing Stoic philosophy, he had understood something about winning that the scoreboard had never taught him. He had understood that the result was not the game, that the outcome was not the measure, that a person can lose every visible contest and still be winning something far more important, or win every visible contest and still be losing the only game that actually matters. On the 4th attempt, he won the election. He served his community with distinction for 2 decades. But when people who knew him well were asked what it made him the person he became, none of them pointed to the win. They pointed to the losses, to the 3 mornings after defeat when he got up, examined himself with honesty, made the adjustments that honesty demanded, and continued, to the discipline of continuing without the reward of success to justify the continuing, to the character that was built not in the winning, but in the choosing to keep going when winning was not on offer. He had learned how to win before he won anything. That is what today is about. This is Stoic Ascension. Subscribe to this channel right now because every video here goes to exactly this depth into the philosophy, the practice, and the complete understanding of what it means to build a life that wins in the ways that actually last. Turn on your notifications. What comes after this builds directly on everything you were about to hear. What winning actually means. The word winning has been so thoroughly captured by a particular definition that most people never question whether the definition is accurate. Winning, in the common understanding, means beating someone else, coming first, getting the result, achieving the outcome, having more, doing better,
arriving before the competition, collecting the prize that signals to yourself and to the watching world that you have succeeded where others have not. This definition is not entirely wrong. Results matter. Outcomes have real consequences. The person who wins the contract, lands the role, builds the business, achieves the goal, these things produce real changes in real circumstances. To pretend otherwise is a comfortable lie. But this definition is catastrophically incomplete, and the incompleteness is what costs most people the only kind of winning that produces anything durable. Because if winning is defined entirely by outcomes, then the following things become true and stay true. Your winning is always dependent on circumstances you do not fully control.
The economy, the competition, the timing, the luck of who you meet and when. All of these are part of every outcome, which means even your victories are partially outside your authorship, and your defeats, including the ones that had nothing to do with the quality of your effort or the integrity of your approach, will feel like personal verdicts rather than complex results. Your winning is always contingent on other people losing, which means your success is permanently entangled with scarcity, with the belief that there is not enough for everyone, that the prize is limited, that your gain requires someone else's loss. This is sometimes literally true in competitive contexts, but as a general framework for a life, it produces a person who is in constant low-level competition with everyone around them. A person who cannot genuinely celebrate others' successes because others' successes feel like reductions of their own. Your winning is always temporary. Every result eventually becomes the past. Every achievement is superseded by the next challenge. Every arrival reveals itself as another departure point. A person whose winning is located entirely in outcomes will spend their entire life winning and then watching what they won become irrelevant and needing to win again in a cycle that never resolves into the satisfaction it promised. The Stoics looked at this definition of winning and found it precisely wanting. Not because results do not matter, but because results are not sufficient as the definition of winning. They build their alternative on something more durable, more honest, and more completely within your actual authorship. The Stoic definition of winning. For the Stoics, winning was a condition of being rather than a result of doing. It was not something you achieved at the end of a contest. It was something you either were or were not in each moment based on a single question. Are you living in alignment with your own deepest values? This sounds simpler than it is, because genuine alignment with genuine values is one of the most demanding things a human being can attempt. Not the performance of values, not saying the right things and maintaining the right image and appearing to stand for the right things when it costs nothing. Actual alignment, the kind that is tested and holds under pressure, the kind that chooses what is right when choosing what is right is genuinely expensive. Marcus Aurelius described winning in terms that his culture would barely have recognized. He was emperor of the most powerful empire in the world. He had won in every external sense available to a human being of his era, and he spent his private journals, words meant for no one but himself, focused on an entirely different kind of winning. Was he more patient today than yesterday? Did he respond to ingratitude with continued generosity? Or did he let the ingratitude become his excuse for withholding? Did he take time for the reflection that kept his judgment clear? Or did he let the urgency of circumstances crowd it out? Did he treat the people around him with the genuine care and justice they deserved? Or did the pressure of his position produce in him the coldness that power so easily produces? These are the questions of a man who understood that the empire was the outer game, and the outer game, however grand, was not the real contest. The real contest was interior. The real winning was not on the battlefield or in the Senate. It was in the daily, private, unglamorous discipline of becoming the person he believed a human being was capable of being. He was the most powerful man in the world, and he spent his most honest hours asking himself whether he had won today in the ways that actually mattered.
This is the Stoic definition of winning. And everything that follows is about how to do it. Why most people are losing without knowing it. There is a particular kind of losing that is invisible because it looks like winning from the outside. The person who achieves the goal through means that compromise their values, who gets the result but becomes someone different in the getting, who arrives at the destination and discovers, in the quiet moment after arrival, that the person who made the journey is not someone they fully respect, the person who wins the argument and loses the relationship, who is right in the technical sense and bankrupt in the deeper one, who cannot let anyone be correct who is not them, who cannot receive a challenge without treating it as an attack, who is so invested in being right that they have made being right more important than being someone worth disagreeing with. The person who accumulates everything the culture told them to accumulate and feels, in the private hours, a kind of emptiness that the accumulation cannot reach. Who has built an impressive life from the outside in and has not built anything from the inside out. Who cannot sit in silence without discomfort, because the silence is where the questions live that the noise was designed to drown. The person who competes so constantly that they have forgotten how to simply be. Who measures every interaction as a performance to be evaluated. Who cannot be genuinely present to anything because they are always, simultaneously, assessing how they are doing in it. These are not failures of intelligence or effort. These are failures of direction, of having aimed at the wrong target for long enough that hitting it consistently still does not produce what was promised. The Stoics would look at all of these and say the same thing. You are playing the outer game as if it were the only game. You are winning in the categories that can be publicly verified, while losing in the categories that can only be privately known. And private knowing is the only knowing that matters, because you are the only audience that is always present. You are the only witness to every decision, every compromise, every moment of genuine courage, and every moment of quiet betrayal of what you said you stood for. You cannot fool yourself forever. Eventually, the private knowing demands an accounting, and the person who has spent years winning externally while losing internally discovers in that accounting that the external winning has not purchased what they thought it would. The game within the game. Every visible contest you are engaged in contains an invisible one. The visible contest is the external game. The business, the relationship, the career, the creative project, the physical goal, the social ambition. These are real. They have real stakes. They are worth genuine effort and genuine investment. The invisible contest is the internal one.
Who are you becoming while you pursue the external goal? What choices are you making when the external stakes create pressure? What are you willing to do? And what are you not willing to do in the service of the outcome? What kind of person is the pursuit of this goal building day by day? Most people are intensely focused on the visible contest and largely unaware that the invisible one is happening simultaneously. They are so focused on winning the external game that they are not noticing what they are losing in the internal one. The Stoic practice is to hold both games in clear view simultaneously, to pursue the external goal with full commitment and genuine effort, and to never let that pursuit become so consuming that the internal game goes unmonitored. Because here is what the Stoics understood with precision. The internal game is the only one whose results are permanent. External wins are temporary. The championship is defended next season. The achievement becomes the standard rather than the accomplishment. The recognition fades as other people's achievements arrive. The money can be lost, the status can be taken. Every external win exists in a category that time and circumstance can eventually revise. But what you have built inside yourself, the character, the discipline, the genuine wisdom earned through honest engagement with difficulty, the integrity that has been tested and has held, this cannot be taken. It cannot be lost against your will. It compounds rather than depreciating. The person you are building, internal game by internal game, becomes more genuinely themselves over time rather than less. This is what lasts. This is what the Stoics were building. And this is what every person who learns to play the internal game well eventually discovers they were really working toward all along.
The strategy of winning, discipline as the foundation. If character is the goal of the internal game, then discipline is the means by which character is built. Not the discipline of rules imposed from outside, not the discipline of someone watching and judging. The discipline of a person who has decided what they are building and who understands that what they are building requires consistent, daily, unglamorous effort, regardless of whether it is convenient, comfortable, or publicly rewarded. Marcus Aurelius wrote about discipline with the urgency of someone who had discovered something precious and was determined not to let himself slide away from it. He woke early, not because his schedule required it, but because the early morning was the only time that belonged entirely to him, before the empire's demands began, before other people's urgency flooded his attention, before the day could happen to him rather than being directed by him. He used those hours to think, to write, to examine himself, to remind himself of the principles he was committed to, and to assess honestly how well the previous day had honored them. This was not efficiency. It was not optimization. It was the discipline of a person who understood that the most important work of his life was not the governance of Rome, but the governance of himself, and that the governance of himself required daily, deliberate, protected time for exactly this purpose.
Seneca wrote that the person who is busy with everything except themselves is the person who is losing the most important contest of their life. That the accumulation of activity is not the same as the accumulation of genuine living. That a life can be full to overflowing and still be empty in the place where it matters most. The discipline required to win in the Stoic sense is the discipline of making time for the inner game. Not after the outer game is handled, not when circumstances become more favorable, now. In the life that is actually happening, with its actual constraints and actual demands. Finding the space, even small space, even brief space, for the honest examination and deliberate direction that the inner game requires. This discipline is the foundation. Without it, every other practice floats in the air, interesting to think about and impossible to actually build with. The strategy of winning, knowing your values before the pressure arrives. Here is one of the most important practical insights in all of Stoic strategy. The pressure moment, the moment when you are tested, when doing the right thing costs something real, when your values and your interests come into genuine conflict, is the worst possible moment to decide what your values are. In that moment, you are under pressure. Your judgment is compromised by the stakes. The temptation is immediate and specific and present, while the value you are being asked to honor is abstract and future-oriented and not immediately rewarding. The choice will be made quickly, often without the luxury of reflection, and the person who has not decided in advance what they stand for will, in that moment, almost always choose the tempting thing, not because they are weak, because they are human, because in the absence of a prior commitment, the immediate and specific always wins over the abstract and future. The Stoic practice is to do the most important choosing before the pressure arrives, to sit in the quiet moments when no particular temptation is present and decide with full honesty and full deliberation what you actually stand for, what you are willing to do and what you are not willing to do, where your line is and why it is there, what you will choose when the choice is genuinely hard. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly in his journals. He was not just recording his philosophy, he was rehearsing it, practicing it in writing so that when the moment came, and in his position the moments came constantly and with very high stakes, the decision was already made. He was not discovering his values under pressure, he was honoring them. This practice of advanced decision is one of the most powerful competitive advantages available to any human being, because the person who already knows what they stand for when the pressure arrives is operating from an entirely different place than the person who is deciding in real time. One is choosing from their values. The other is choosing from their circumstances. And choices made from values are consistently better, more aligned with genuine interest, more durable in their results, more honest in their costs. than choices made from the pressure of the moment. Know what you stand for before you need to stand for it. The moment will come. Be ready. The strategy of winning, playing the long game. The Stoics were not short-term thinkers.
They operated with a temporal framework that most modern people have difficulty sustaining, one that evaluated choices not by their immediate returns, but by their ultimate direction. Not by what they produced this week, but by what they were building over a lifetime. This long-game thinking changes almost every calculation. The short-game thinker takes the shortcut because it produces the result faster, without fully accounting for what the shortcut costs in terms of character, reputation built on truth rather than performance, and the self-knowledge that only comes from doing the harder thing. The long-game thinker passes on the shortcut, not because they do not want the result, they want it as much as anyone, but because they understand that what the shortcut costs is more valuable than what it provides. That the reputation built honestly, the skill built through genuine difficulty, the character built through consistent right choice, these compound in ways that the shortcut can never match. The short-game thinker compromises their values when the stakes are high enough, when the cost of integrity is real enough, when the temptation is specific enough and the reward immediate enough, and the principle abstract enough. The long-game thinker understands that the moment you compromise your values under sufficient pressure is the moment you have communicated to yourself that your values are conditional, that they are operative when convenient and suspended when costly. And a conditional value is not a value, it is a preference, and preferences are not the foundation of a winning life, they are the furniture of a comfortable one. Epictetus, who played the longest game in the most constrained circumstances, never compromised the single thing that was genuinely his own judgment, his own response to what occurred, his own choice of how to interpret and engage with the world he could not change. He could not change being enslaved. He could not change the physical damage done to his body. He could not change the circumstances of his birth or the society he was born into. He played the longest possible game with the narrowest possible set of controllable variables, and produced from that narrow set one of the most expansive and enduring philosophical contributions in human history. The long game is available at every scale and in every circumstance. What is required is not favorable external conditions. What is required is the willingness to measure victory by the direction you are moving rather than the position you currently occupy. The strategy of winning, using everything. The person who wins the internal game does not divide their experience into good experiences and bad ones, into the things that are helping them and the things that are hindering them. They have developed a relationship with their experience that the Stoics considered one of the highest expressions of practical wisdom. They use everything. The success is used, not just enjoyed and then moved past. Examined. What choices produced this? What about the approach was genuinely sound and worth repeating? What fortunate circumstances contributed that should not be mistaken for skill? What does this success reveal about direction that can be built on?
The failure is used, not processed through shame and buried, or processed through defensiveness and denied. Examined with the same honest curiosity that success receives. What did this reveal about a gap between intention and execution? What did this show about a misalignment between effort and approach? What does this teach that success, comfortable and validating, could never have provided? The difficult person is used, not as an obstacle to be endured or a problem to be removed, as material. What does my response to this person reveal about the places in my own character that have not yet been fully developed? What is the practice of responding to them well, teaching me that being surrounded by agreeable people could never teach? The loss is used, the rejection is used, the unexpected obstacle is used, the betrayal is used. Not because using things makes them stop hurting. They still hurt. But because hurt that produces growth is the most expensive tuition in the most important curriculum available, and a person who pays the tuition without taking the course is wasting the most valuable resource their difficulty ever offered. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not optimism, it is strategy.
the strategy of a person who has decided that nothing that arrives in their life will be wasted, that every experience, the welcomed ones and the devastating ones, will be examined, understood, and integrated into the ongoing construction of the person they are determined to become. This is one of the most powerful winning strategies available, because it means you cannot be depleted by difficulty. Difficulty becomes resource. And the person who turns difficulty into resource is someone who gets stronger precisely when others are getting weaker, who accumulates genuine advantage precisely in the conditions that most people are simply trying to survive. The strategy of winning, the relationship with other people. The Stoics were not solitary philosophers. They were deeply, practically engaged with the social dimension of human life. And their approach to other people is one of the most strategically sophisticated elements of their entire framework. The person who wins the internal game does not treat other people as competition to be beaten, obstacles to be removed, audiences to be impressed, or tools to be used. They treat other people as what they actually are: fellow human beings carrying their own interior worlds, their own wounds and hopes, and partially realized potential, doing their imperfect best to navigate the same fundamental human challenges. This is not naive. This is not the counsel of someone who has not encountered genuinely difficult, genuinely harmful people. The Stoics were clear-eyed about human nature in all its complexity. Marcus Aurelius dealt with betrayal, dishonesty, ingratitude, and political cruelty on a scale that most people will never encounter. What he refused to do was let his experience of difficult people become his framework for relating to all people. He continued to extend the most generous available interpretation to human behavior, not because he was blind to its darker expressions, but because he understood that the alternative, the cynical, defended, everyone is competition posture, was a worse prison than any difficulty it was designed to protect against.
The person who treats every encounter as competition has made themselves permanently alone. Even in the company of others, they are separate, calculating, managing, performing, competing. They cannot receive genuine care because they are always wondering what it costs. They cannot offer genuine generosity because they are always tracking what it earns. The Stoic winner is genuinely other-oriented, not self-sacrificing LY, not in ways that abandon their own values or diminish their own life, but genuinely interested in the well-being of the people around them, genuinely invested in contributing something real to the communities and relationships they inhabit. And this genuine orientation toward others is, paradoxically, one of the most powerful things they can do for themselves. Because the person who contributes genuinely earns the kind of trust and relationship that cannot be manufactured, gamed, or purchased. And that trust, accumulated over years of honest dealing, becomes one of the most durable foundations for a winning life. The strategy of winning. How you respond to setback. In the Stoic framework, setback is not the opposite of winning. It is one of the primary conditions through which winning is built. This is not a reframe designed to make failure feel better. It is a precise and honest observation about where character, the foundation of genuine winning, is actually forged. Character is not built in success. Success is comfortable and validating and reinforcing. It confirms your existing beliefs about yourself and the world. It does not expand you. It does not reveal you. It does not demand the kind of genuine response that produces genuine growth. Difficulty demands. Setback demands. The question of who you are when things go wrong, when the effort does not produce the expected result, when the support you counted on is withdrawn, when the path you were on closes and no obvious alternative presents itself, this question reveals and builds character in ways that comfort never can. The Stoic practice in the moment of setback is to ask, immediately and with genuine honesty, a specific sequence of questions. What is still within my control right now? Because something always is.
Even in the most complete seeming setback, the inner game continues. The choice of how to interpret this, how to respond to it, what to do with what remains, these choices belong to you, regardless of what has been taken. What is this teaching me that success was incapable of teaching? Because every genuine setback contains specific information about a gap in skill, about a misalignment in strategy, about a place where confidence exceeded capacity, or where the approach needs revision. This information is available only because the setback arrived. Success would have concealed it indefinitely. Who do I want to be in this specific moment? Not in general, not abstractly, in this specific moment with this specific difficulty present. What response would I most respect in myself? And then, without waiting for the feeling to arrive, without needing to feel ready, begin being that person now, here, in the middle of the setback rather than after it.
The answers to these questions, engaged with honestly and consistently across every setback a life produces, build something that success cannot. They build the absolutely unshakable confidence of a person who knows they can handle whatever arrives. Not because they have never been knocked down, but because they have been knocked down and have gotten up and gotten up and gotten up again. And the getting up has become their identity in a way that the staying down never could. The strategy of winning, patience as power. One of the most misunderstood elements of Stoic strategy is the role of patience in genuine winning. Modern culture is deeply uncomfortable with patience. It has been trained to mistake speed for progress, immediate results for genuine achievement, the appearance of momentum for actual forward movement. And this discomfort with patience costs people an enormous amount of what they are actually trying to build. The things worth building take time, not because the universe is withholding them, but because their depth and genuineness is inseparable from the time required to develop them. Genuine skill takes time. Not just the time of practicing a technique, but the time of encountering genuine difficulty within the skill. The moments when it stops working, when the approach you have mastered is not enough, when the next level demands something the current level never required, and developing the specific capacities that those specific encounters produce. Genuine character takes time. Each quality of character, the courage, the wisdom, the justice, the self-discipline, is built through countless specific choices made in countless specific circumstances over years. There is no shortcut to this. You cannot read your way there. You cannot intend your way there. You can only choose your way there, one choice at a time, across more choices than can be counted. Genuine relationships take time. The trust that makes a relationship genuinely valuable, the kind of trust where you can be completely honest without performing, where you can receive care without calculating the cost, where the other person knows you well enough to offer you something real rather than something flattering. This trust is built through time and consistency and the accumulation of honest dealing across many circumstances. The Stoics practice patience not as passive waiting, but as active, disciplined engagement with a process they trusted, even when the results were not yet visible. They understood that the process was the point, that the daily work of building, even when the building was not yet showing in the structure, was itself the winning. Marcus Aurelius wrote about continuing the work regardless of whether it was appreciated, recognized, or producing visible results. Not because results did not matter, but because the work itself, done with full commitment and genuine integrity, was the fullest expression of who he was trying to be. And being that person fully, regardless of the external return, was the winning. Patience is the willingness to trust the process when the process is not yet producing the visible outcome. It is one of the rarest and most powerful capacities available to a human being who wants to build something that lasts. What winning costs and why it is worth it. There is a price for winning the internal game. It would be dishonest not to name it clearly. It costs comfort. The internal game is built through choosing the harder path when both paths are available. through the discipline that requires something of you every day, including and especially the days when nothing external demands it. It costs approval. Not always, but sometimes. The person committed to genuine values will encounter situations where doing what is right costs them the approval of people whose approval they care about. The person who wins the internal game makes that trade anyway. Not carelessly, with genuine acknowledgement of what it costs, but without letting the cost become the deciding factor. It costs speed. The long game is slower than the short one. The person committed to building something genuine through honest means will sometimes watch people who have no such commitment get there faster through means they would not employ. This is real. It is sometimes genuinely hard to witness, and the internal game requires continuing anyway, continuing to trust that what is being built through honest means is more durable and more genuinely satisfying than what can be obtained through compromised ones. It costs certainty. The person playing the internal game cannot always be sure they are winning. External results are clear and verifiable. Internal progress is slower and subtler, and sometimes invisible even to the person making it. The practice requires continuing without the constant confirmation that the continuing is working. These costs are real, and in the honest accounting that genuine philosophy demands, they must be named alongside the rewards. But the rewards are also real. The freedom of a person whose peace does not depend on external conditions. The confidence of a person who knows they have been tested and held. The depth of a person who has built their interior life with the same seriousness and care they bring to anything that matters to them. The relationships that come from being someone who actually is what they appear to be. The work that comes from skills genuinely built rather than performed. The life that feels, from the inside, like a life that is genuinely, authentically, completely yours. This is what winning actually provides. Not the trophy, not the recognition, not the temporary elevation of external circumstances. A life you can live with completely, from the inside, in the private hours when no one is watching, and the only witness is the one that never leaves.
The invitation to begin. The man who lost 3 elections before winning the 4th did not know, standing in the rubble of each defeat, that a 4th attempt would succeed. He did not have that information. He could not have it. What he had was something more reliable than information about the future. He had a clear understanding of the internal game. He had the daily practice of examining himself honestly and making the adjustments that honesty demanded. He had the commitment to continue building the person he wanted to be, regardless of whether the external game was currently validating the building. He had learned how to win before he won anything. And that learning, that daily, unglamorous, privately practiced learning, was the thing that made the eventual external win possible. Not guaranteed, possible. And when it arrived for someone who was already the person the position required, not someone the position was trying to shape. Someone who had shaped themselves for it through years of playing the internal game with full commitment. This learning is available to you today, not when the circumstances improve, not when the external game starts going better, not when you feel more ready or more certain or more confident that the internal game is worth the investment. Now, in the life that is actually happening, in the circumstances that are actually present, with the challenges that are actually on your plate and the resources that are actually yours and the person you are actually capable of becoming through the serious, sustained, honest practice of the principles we have covered today. Begin the internal game. Bring to it the same seriousness you bring to the external one. Evaluate yourself not by the scorecard the world is keeping, but by the more honest and more demanding scorecard you keep for yourself in the private hours. Ask each morning, what kind of person am I committing to being today? And each evening, did I honor that commitment? And where I did not, what does the honest examination of that tell me about where the practice needs to go deeper? This is the work. It is unglamorous. It does not always feel like winning, especially in the beginning and especially on the days when the external game is going badly. But it is the only work that produces the only kind of winning that cannot be taken, the kind that lives inside you, that you carry everywhere, that compounds over years into something that circumstances cannot touch and time cannot diminish. The kind that in the end is the only kind worth the life it costs to build. Subscribe to Stoic Ascension right now. Turn on your notifications. Every video on this channel is built for exactly this depth, the complete, honest, philosophy-grounded examination of what it means to build a life that wins in every way that actually matters. What comes after this builds directly on everything you just heard, and you do not want to miss it. You were never just playing the game the world could see. You were always playing the one inside you. Start winning that one.
This decision changes everything. She was 43 years old, sitting in a hospital waiting room, holding a paper cup of cold coffee she had not drunk, staring at a wall she was not seeing. Her mother was in surgery. Her marriage had ended 6 months before. Her business, which she had spent 11 years building with everything she had, was failing in ways she could no longer pretend were temporary. 3 of the people she had considered her closest friends had quietly disappeared when the difficulty arrived, which taught her something about those friendships that she was still processing. Everything, in every direction, was broken. A woman sat down beside her. A stranger, older, with the particular stillness of someone who had been through their own versions of exactly this. They sat in silence for a while. Then the stranger said, without preamble, without knowing any of the specifics, "You know what changes everything?" She looked up. The stranger said, "The moment you decide that you are the kind of person who does not stay down. Not because getting up is easy, not because the circumstances suddenly deserve your getting up, but because you have decided completely, privately, with no audience and no guarantee, that who you are is someone who gets up. That is the decision. And once you make it for real, not as a performance or a motivation, but as a genuine interior commitment, everything that comes after it is different. Not easier, different. Because you are different." The surgery went well. The business eventually closed, and something better was built from its lessons. The marriage did not return, but a version of herself that had been buried under the weight of the marriage did. And the friendships that disappeared were replaced, over time, by ones that had been tested before they were trusted. None of that happened because of a motivational speech. None of it happened because circumstances cooperated or luck arrived or the universe finally rewarded her patience. It happened because of a decision made in a hospital waiting room next to a stranger who asked the right question. A decision that changed everything. This is what we are exploring today. Not the circumstances that need to change, not the external conditions that need to shift, the single interior decision that is the hinge point between the life you have been living and the life you are actually capable of living. This is Stoic Ascension. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on your notifications, because every video here is built for exactly this depth, the philosophy, the practice, the genuine interior work that changes not just what you do, but who you are. What comes after this builds directly on everything you are about to hear. Why one decision can change everything. Most people believe that change is gradual and incremental, that you become a different person slowly through the accumulation of small adjustments over long periods of time. That transformation, if it comes at all, comes quietly, without a clear before and after. Sometimes that is true. Gradual, incremental growth is real and valuable, and the way most genuine development actually works. But underneath every significant transformation in a human life, the Stoics observed something that incremental growth alone cannot account for. A moment, a specific interior shift,
A decision that was made, genuinely made, not contemplated or considered or almost made, but actually made, that changed the direction of everything that followed. Not a decision about what to do, a decision about who to be. The distinction is crucial. Decisions about what to do are made constantly. You decide what to eat, where to go, what to say, how to spend the next hour. These decisions have consequences, but they do not fundamentally alter the trajectory of a life, because they are made from within a framework of identity that remains unchanged. The person who decides to eat better is still, fundamentally, the person they were before the decision. The behavior changes. The person does not. Decisions about who to be are different in kind. They reach beneath the surface of behavior to the level of identity. They answer not the question of what I will do, but the question of who I am. And when the answer to that question genuinely changes, when the interior commitment to a different version of yourself is made with real honesty and real completeness, everything that follows is different. Not because external circumstances have changed, because the person navigating those circumstances has. The Stoics built an entire philosophy around this level of decision, around the understanding that the most important choice a human being makes is not what they pursue, but who they decide to be. And that this decision, made with full honesty and full commitment, is available to any person at any moment, regardless of their circumstances. This is the most radical and the most empowering thing Stoic philosophy offers. Not a technique for handling difficulty better, not a framework for thinking about problems more clearly. The understanding that you can decide right now to be a different kind of person, and that the decision, genuinely made, is the change. What the Stoics understood about identity. The Stoics had a precise understanding of what a human being actually is, and it is different from how most people currently understand themselves. Most people understand their identity as something that was given to them, the accumulated product of their history, the family they were born into, the experiences they had, the wounds they sustained, the habits they formed, the personality that emerged from all of this. They understand themselves as the person their past made them. And because the past cannot be changed, this understanding of identity is fixed. You are who you are. Circumstances made you this way. The most you can do is manage the person you have already become. The Stoics rejected this completely. Not because history does not shape people, it clearly does, but because they understood that the final authority over who you are does not belong to your history. It belongs to your judgment. And your judgment, unlike your history, is always in the present tense, always available, always yours to exercise. Epictetus was shaped by slavery, by physical damage, by the complete absence of the external conditions that most people consider necessary for dignity and self-determination. And he became one of the most psychologically free human beings who ever lived, not because his history was overwritten, it wasn't, but because he exercised his judgment about who he was going to be within and despite that history, with such consistency and such genuine commitment that the history became material for wisdom rather than a limitation on becoming.
Marcus Aurelius was shaped by privilege, by political pressure, by the weight of expectations that began before he was old enough to have formed his own. And he chose, daily, to be something different from what that shaping might have produced. To be reflective rather than reactive, humble rather than arrogant, genuinely concerned with justice rather than merely with power. Neither of them was simply the product of their circumstances. Both of them were the product of decisions made about who to be within their circumstances. This is the Stoic understanding of identity. Not fixed, not given, continuously chosen. And the most important choosing is not the small daily choices about behavior, though those matter, but the foundational decision about what kind of person is making those choices. The decision that the Stoics made and what it produced. The specific decision that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy is deceptively simple to state and genuinely difficult to make completely. It is the decision to take full responsibility for your own interior life. Not for everything that happens to you, not for the circumstances you were born into or the difficulties that arrive uninvited, or the actions of other people. The Stoics were clear about the boundaries of genuine responsibility, and they did not expand those boundaries past what was honest, but full, complete, non-negotiable responsibility for how you respond to everything that happens to you, for the meaning you assign to events, for the story you tell about your own life and the person living it, for the quality of your own judgment, the integrity of your own choices, the direction of your own development. This decision, genuinely made, not as an aspiration, but as an actual commitment, changes the experience of being alive more completely than any external change can. Because it moves you from a position that the Stoics identified as one of the primary sources of human suffering, the position of a person who is waiting for circumstances to cooperate before they can be who they want to be, to a position of genuine agency. Not the false agency of believing you can control everything. The real agency of understanding that the one thing that matters most, who you are, how you respond, what you stand for, is genuinely and completely yours. Regardless of what the world does, regardless of what has been done to you, regardless of what is currently broken or missing or falling apart. You are the author of your own interior.
The world is not. Other people are not. History is not. The moment you decide this, really decided, with the weight of genuine commitment rather than the lightness of an interesting idea, you have made the decision that changes everything. Why most people never make this decision? If this decision is so available and so powerful, why do most people never fully make it? The answer is not laziness or lack of intelligence. The people who do not make this decision are not lesser than those who do. They are simply responding to a set of pressures that are genuinely powerful and that push very consistently in the opposite direction. The first pressure is the comfort of attribution. If your interior state is caused by external circumstances, then the responsibility for it belongs to the circumstances. The difficult childhood, the unkind partner, the unfair system, the bad luck. These are not invented, they're real. The harm they caused was real.
And the ability to point to them as the cause of current difficulty provides something that genuine responsibility does not: relief from the demanding question of what you are going to do about it. Attributing your state to external causes is not dishonest in its recognition of what occurred. It is limiting in its implication that what occurred determines what must continue. And most people, without fully realizing it, have accepted that implication, have allowed the causes of current difficulty, however real those causes are, to also become the reasons for current limitation. The Stoic decision does not require denying what caused the difficulty. It requires refusing to let the cause be the ceiling. The second pressure is the risk of genuine agency. If you take full responsibility for your own interior life, then you also take full responsibility for the life you are currently living. You cannot locate the dissatisfaction, the stagnation, the distance between who you are and who you want to be in the world's failure to cooperate. You have to locate it in your own choices, your own decisions, the ways in which you have settled or avoided or chosen comfort over genuine growth. This is confronting, genuinely confronting, and many people stand at the edge of this confrontation and step back, not because they cannot bear the truth, but because the truth demands something of them that attribution does not. It demands change, real change, interior change, the kind that requires genuine effort and genuine honesty and the willingness to become different, which always involves first becoming uncomfortable. The third pressure is fear of the future. Making the decision to take full responsibility for your interior life means committing to a standard that will be tested. It means saying, I am the kind of person who responds this way, and then encountering the moments when responding that way is genuinely hard, when the standard you set for yourself demands more than the day feels capable of offering. Most people, afraid of failing their own standard, never set it. They remain in the comfortable ambiguity of someone who is doing their best without having fully defined what their best actually is. The Stoics would say, set the standard. Accept that it will be imperfectly honored. Use the imperfection as information and practice, rather than as evidence of inadequacy, and begin again, every morning, as someone committed to the standard, regardless of yesterday's performance. The fear of failure at your own commitment is not a reason to avoid the commitment. It is the beginning of the practice. The anatomy of the decision, what it actually contains. The decision that changes everything is not a single simple thing. When it is made genuinely and completely, it contains several distinct commitments that are worth naming clearly. The first commitment is the commitment to see yourself honestly, not critically, not harshly, honestly. To look at the person you currently are, with their genuine strengths and their genuine limitations, their real courage and their real areas of avoidance, without the distortion of pride or shame. To see what is actually there, not what you wish were there, not what you fear might be there, what is actually honestly present.
This is the beginning of everything, because you cannot build on a misunderstanding of your current foundation. The Stoics practice this through daily evening examination, the patient, rigorous, non-punishing review of the day's choices against the standard of who they were working to become, not to produce guilt, to produce clarity, to see where the current self and the intended self diverged, and to use that divergence as a map for the practice. The second commitment is the commitment to take your own development seriously.
Not as a project with a completion date, not as a self-improvement program with a curriculum and a graduation, as the primary and permanent work of your life, the work that continues alongside and beneath every other work, the work that gives every other work its genuine meaning. Most people treat their own development as something they will attend to when circumstances become more favorable, when they have more time, more stability, more of the resources that currently feel insufficient. The Stoics would point out with gentle but firm insistence that this moment never arrives for people who are waiting for it. The favorable circumstances are a story people tell themselves to make the avoidance of genuine development feel like prudence. The commitment to take your own development seriously means beginning now, in the circumstances that are actually present, with the time that is actually available, with the imperfect version of yourself that is actually here. The third commitment is the commitment to standards that do not depend on an audience. The decision that changes everything is a private one, made in the interior, honored in private behavior that may never be witnessed, in choices made when no one is watching, in the maintenance of a standard that external recognition does not sustain and external criticism cannot remove. The Stoics were insistent on this, not because public life does not matter, it does, but because character built for an audience is performance, not character. And performance, however polished, does not produce the interior stability that genuine development provides. It produces dependency on the audience's continued approval, which is, in the end, the same fragility we are trying to move away from. The fourth commitment is the commitment to continue. Not to always succeed, not to always perform at the level you have set for yourself, but to always continue. To treat setback as information, failure as curriculum, difficult days as evidence of where the practice needs to go deeper rather than evidence that the practice has failed. To begin again every morning with the same commitment that you began with, renewed not because the commitment never lapses, but because you have decided that lapsing is not the same as ending. These four commitments, taken together, constitute the decision that changes everything. They are not separate choices made at separate times. They are four dimensions of a single interior commitment that, when made genuinely and maintained consistently, produces a fundamentally different kind of person. What changes after the decision? The immediate effects. The changes that follow a genuine interior decision of this kind are not all dramatic. Some of them are quiet, almost invisible, felt before they can be articulated. But they are real, and they accumulate rapidly into something that the life as it was before cannot quite contain.
The first thing that changes is the relationship with difficulty. Before the decision, difficulty is primarily an obstacle, something that stands between you and what you want, something to be overcome so that you can return to the progress that the difficulty interrupted. After the decision, difficulty is primarily material, something to work with, something that reveals, under its pressure, both the current edges of your capacity and the direction in which capacity can expand. Something that, engaged with honestly and completely, builds the very thing it seems designed to prevent. This shift does not make difficulty feel pleasant. Difficulty continues to feel like difficulty, but its meaning changes. And because the meaning changes, the response changes. And because the response changes, the outcome changes. Not always in the ways you would choose, but always in ways that are genuinely yours. The second thing that changes is the relationship with time. Before the decision, time is something that happens to you, that passes while you are managing the circumstances, that slips by while you are waiting for the conditions that will allow genuine living to begin. After the decision, time is something you inhabit. Each day is an opportunity for the practice. Each hour contains choices that are either building the person you are committed to becoming or departing from that building. Time is no longer the medium through which life passes. It is the substance from which a life is made. This shift produces a different quality of presence, not the forced, performed presence of someone who has read that they should be mindful.
the natural presence of a person who understands that this moment, exactly this one, is where the work they care most about is being done. The third thing that changes is the relationship with other people. Before the decision, other people are primarily sources of external validation or external threat. Their approval confirms that you are on the right path. Their criticism threatens the foundation you have built on their approval. Their success triggers comparison. Their failure triggers uncomfortable relief. After the decision, other people are fellow travelers, people engaged in the same fundamental human project, the project of becoming something more genuinely themselves than they currently are, with whatever degree of awareness and commitment their own history and circumstances have produced. This shift does not mean you become indifferent to how others treat you. It means you stop requiring their treatment of you to determine your interior state, which means you can engage with them more genuinely, more generously, more freely, because the engagement is no longer a high-stakes negotiation for your own sense of worth.
What changes after the decision? The long-term effects. The long-term effects of a genuine interior decision of this kind are harder to describe, precisely because they are cumulative. They compound. They are not discrete events, but a direction that, maintained over years, produces a person who is qualitatively different from the one who made the decision. The long-term effect on character is the most significant. Character, the Stoics were insistent on this, is not a trait you are born with. It is a practice you perform consistently enough that it becomes who you are. The person who consistently chooses courage in moments that call for it is not exercising a trait called courage. They are building it, choice by choice, into a permanent feature of their interior landscape. This is why the decision matters so much. The decision establishes the direction, and the direction, maintained across thousands of ordinary choices made in ordinary circumstances over years, determines the character. The decision is the seed. The character that grows from it is the tree. And a tree once genuinely established is not easily moved. The long-term effect on relationships is equally significant. Genuine relationships, the kind built on honest mutual recognition rather than mutual performance, are only available to people who are genuinely themselves, who are not managing an impression, who can be known rather than simply seen. The person who has made the decision to take full responsibility for their own interior life and has lived by that decision for years becomes someone who can be genuinely known, because they are genuinely consistent, because who they are in public and who they are in private have, through years of the same commitment, converged into the same person, because the performance that most people maintain has been replaced through deliberate and sustained practice by genuine character. And the relationships available to that person, relationships of real trust, real honesty, real mutual recognition, are among the most valuable things a human life can contain. The long-term effect on work is transformative. When you are building from genuine interior commitment rather than from the need for external validation, the quality of the work changes. It becomes less about the recognition it produces and more about the genuine contribution it makes. Less about how it reflects on you and more about what it actually offers. Less constrained by fear of judgment and more expensively creative within the genuine capacities you have been steadily building. Work done from this place, from genuine interior commitment developed over years of taking your own development seriously, reaches a level of quality that work done for external validation almost never achieves. Because it is not limited by what you think others want. It is built from what you genuinely have to offer. The moment the decision becomes available. Here is something that the Stoics understood, and that is worth naming with complete clarity. The decision that changes everything is available right now. Not after the circumstances improve, not after the current difficulty passes, not after you have processed the grief or resolved the conflict or stabilized the situation or achieved the milestone that feels like permission to begin. Right now. In the life that is actually happening. In the circumstances that are actually present.
With the history you actually have. and the wounds that are actually there, and the version of yourself that is actually here, the decision does not require favorable circumstances. It requires only the genuine willingness to make it. This is radical, genuinely radical, because most people are living with complete sincerity as if the decision will become available later, as if they are waiting for some condition to be met that will make the commitment possible in a way it is not currently possible. The Stoics looked at this waiting with extraordinary directness. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is not death that a person should fear, but the unlived life. The life that is always about to begin once things are more stable, more resolved, more ready. Things are never more ready. Life does not pause to allow preparation for itself. You do not get a rehearsal period followed by the actual performance. This is the performance. These circumstances, this moment, this version of you, this is what is real and available. The decision is available now because now is the only time in which decisions exist. The past is closed. The future is imagined. The present moment, exactly this one, is where the decision that changes everything can be made, and then made again tomorrow and the day after, not because the decision expires, but because genuine commitment is a practice of renewal, a daily return to the same interior choice made fresh in the circumstances that are freshly present as the person who is freshly here. How to make the decision and how to know it is real. The decision that changes everything is not made by saying it. It is not made by writing it down or telling someone about it or feeling the inspiration of it in a particularly powerful moment. It is made by doing something different, something small, something concrete, something that costs you something, and doing it from the interior commitment that the decision has established. This is how you know the decision is real. Not by how it feels when you make it. Feelings are unreliable. Inspiration is temporary. The energy of a powerful realization fades. The decision is real when it produces different behavior in the moments when different behavior is difficult, when it holds in the moments that test it.
The accumulation is the evidence, not of the original decision, which was only a beginning, but of a genuine interior commitment that is alive and operative and shaping the direction of choices in the ordinary, unglamorous, unwitnessed moments of an actual life. Epictetus taught his students that philosophy is not what you say. It is what you do when no one is watching, when nothing external is rewarding the doing, when the only thing sustaining the choice is the interior commitment that you made and are choosing right now to honor. This is how the decision is made real, and this is how it changes everything. Not in the moment of making, in the 10,000 subsequent moments of keeping. The life on the other side. The woman in the hospital waiting room lived the rest of her life differently after that conversation. Not perfectly, not without difficulty or setback or the full range of human suffering that no philosophy can fully prevent, but differently. With a quality of interior orientation that she described when asked as feeling like always knowing which direction was forward. Not always being able to move quickly in that direction. Not always having the energy or the clarity or the external circumstances that made movement easy, but always knowing which direction it was. This is what the decision provides. Not the elimination of difficulty, not the guarantee of favorable outcomes, the interior orientation that makes every difficulty navigable, that makes every setback workable, that makes every ordinary day, even the hard ones, especially the hard ones, genuinely yours. Lived from the inside out. Authored by the person you have decided to be, rather than dictated by the circumstances you happen to be in. This is what the Stoics were building, what Marcus Aurelius was building in his journals, what Epictetus was building in his teaching room, what Seneca was building through years of practice in conditions that ranged from extraordinary privilege to the threat of death at the hands of a man he had tried to guide toward wisdom. They were building the interior life that makes a human being genuinely free. Not free from circumstance. No one is free from circumstance. Free within it. Free to be themselves, fully, honestly, committedly, regardless of what the world is doing around them. This freedom is available. It begins with the decision. A single, genuine, interior decision to be the kind of person who does not stay down, who takes responsibility for their own interior, who builds from the inside out, who continues regardless. The decision is here, right now, in this moment, waiting for the person who is finally ready to make it. Are you ready? Subscribe to Stoic Ascension right now. Turn on your notifications. Every single video on this channel is built for exactly this depth. The complete, honest, philosophically grounded work of becoming the person you are genuinely capable of being. What comes after this goes even deeper into the philosophy and practice that makes the decision we explored today an actual, living, daily reality rather than just a powerful idea. The life you want does not begin with different circumstances. It begins with a different decision. Make it today. Make it now.